Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would everyone please stand to join us for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty. I'd like to report out on our closed session. Item A, conference with labor negotiators, Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency designated representatives were Micheline Meaglis, Lucinda Abbott, and Darlene Avalos. And the employee organization was the Carpentry Association of Unified School Employees. And information was exchanged, no action was taken. And then item 2, information, public employee discipline dismissal release, Government Code Section 54957. We actually are going to reconvene after this, and we'll report out on that then. After we're done at the end of this meeting. Item 3, move on to approval of the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes of regular meeting of May 10th and May 14th, 2016.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
I move we approve the agenda and consent agenda.
I'll second.
A roll call.
Alicia?
Aye.
Jacqueline?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
And I'm aye.
Okay, and we're welcoming back Jamie. Welcome back for your report.
Thank you.
Long time no see.
I know, it's been a while. All right, we're going to start off with Aliso. So Aliso hosted Carpentry Family Bike Night last Friday night and had a great turnout. The Aliso parents donated food to serve for volunteers and guests. Safe riding and bike skills were a focus, and the evening ended with a community ride practicing those learned skills. This event ties into Aliso's increasing parent involvement goal and their single plan for student achievement. Aliso was pleased and honored to be selected again this year as a Carpinteria, California Honor Roll School by the Educational Results Partnership in the Campaign for Business and Educational Excellence. Improved achievement and reduction of achievement gaps. The Aliso team is grateful for the recognition of the high standards that they set for their students and the students' success in achieving those goals. Moving on to Carpinteria Family School. Carpinteria Family School has completed their goals for the Culture of Reading program. Students earned 2,000 plus points on accelerated reading. This required the children reading many books and taking comprehension tests. They picked a bicycle for a student in an impoverished country as a prize, and it has been ordered. 100% of parents have participated and or volunteered this year. This includes activities such as supplying morning snacks for a week in their child's classroom, working on the Lion King production, classroom volunteering, and work done at home. Students have shown improvement on their MAPS, Measure of Academic Performance Testing, and the school looks forward to the results of the CAA SPP state test. Now on to Canalino. Staff, students, and families at Canalino are proud to report that this school year, parent participation is at an all-time high, signing in over 280 families at the last family picnic lunch as an example. Canalino had 100% parent participation in March parent conferences, also due in large part to high-quality implementation of positive behavioral support strategies school-wide. Their suspension rate this year was 0.08% down from 2.4% the previous year. Finally, this school year, Canalino offered a significant amount of professional development in writing instruction, math instruction, ELD and ELA standards, and the California framework, positive behavioral support, and cultural and linguistic equity practices. Canalino 5th graders will have their promotion ceremony and celebration following on June 10th at 10 a.m. Canalino hopes to host all the board members and superintendent on the stage that morning. At Summerlin, play practice is in full swing. Costumes are made, and the set design is currently in progress. Summerlin School hopes to see all all at one of the Wizard of Oz performance dates on June 3rd or June 4th. Summerlin School is also very excited for their career day that is scheduled this Thursday in the morning. This particular day was scheduled around the school's focus on college and career readiness. On Career Day, students will learn about a variety of career options in hopes to increase their desires and interest in attending college. At Carpinteria Middle School, they had their top accomplishments, including the section of math curriculum aligned to the state standards. The teachers are now poised for implementation and focusing on instruction. The Language Arts Department continues to improve their cohesive writing program. The program is now tightly aligned with the rigorous state expectations. Carpenter Middle School has begun a Purposeful Student Talk initiative. Purposeful Student Talk is a teacher-planned, student-centered discourse where students utilize academic language to build on their ideas, support their thinking, and challenge ideas. Their goal is to shift the cognitive load from the teachers to the students. A classroom where students are tasked to do the talking or explaining is more engaging, benefits all levels of students, and is a prerequisite for quality writing. The promotion ceremony will take place on June 10th at 11:45 on the outside basketball courts. CMS hopes to see you all there. At Rincon and Foothill Schools, staff and students have accomplished a great deal this school year. 3 accomplishments in particular include: number 1, in the fall, two-thirds of Rincon seniors had caught up on their graduation credits during their time at Rincon High School and were able to successfully transfer back to Carpenter High School for the spring semester. Rincon staff is so proud of these students and will be cheering them on when they walk across the stage, diploma in hand, at this year's Carpenter High School graduation. Accomplishment number 2, the staff are equally proud of the Rincon and Foothill graduating seniors who will be celebrated by proud family members and friends at the upcoming Rincon Foothill graduation. All of these students will either be going on to college in the fall or military service. What an accomplishment for these students who have demonstrated successful completion of their high school requirements while also having overcome significant obstacles. It is also an accomplishment for the staff and the Rincon Foothill community and demonstrates that a small, personalized living environment that meets each student where they're at, while also having high expectations for where they can go, works and provides a second chance for these students to succeed in school and life. Accomplishment number 3, in addition to the embedded support programs available at Rincon and Foothill students, 77% of the students also participated in outside intervention programs such as START therapy, Community Action Commission's Los Compadres, Las Comadres, and Mentor Program, CalSO Partners in Education's Key Class, and others. By developing their whole person, students were able to become more successful in the classroom. Rincon and Foothill High School will be celebrating the accomplishments of their staff and senior students at this year's Rincon and Foothill High School's graduation ceremony. Please join them on Wednesday, June 8th at 6:30 p.m. at the Lions Park. And thank you to the Carpinteria Lions Club for their unwavering support of Rincon and Foothill High schools and hosting their graduation ceremony once again. Thank you. Moving on to Carpinteria High School. Carpinteria High School Math Department has selected and adopted a new math curriculum aligned to the state standards. The teachers are looking forward to professional development and fully implementing the curriculum next year. Carpinteria High School held various college-going events for their students. In October, they held UC Achieve, where 150 students participated in 4 workshops on how to prepare for college or career. They also had 10 college field trips over the school year. Carpinteria High School received a career technical education grant for $132,000 to support their CTE programs. Over the school year, Carpinteria High School hosted 4 Get Focused, Stay Focused workshops where over 120 educators representing schools from across the state and country attended to learn about their award-winning program. Carpinteria High School will hold its 99th graduation on June 10, 2016 at 6 p.m. at Carpinteria Valley Memorial Stadium.
All right. Thanks, Jamie. Okay, we'll move on to item 2, the selection of certain members to the Independent Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Can I get a motion there?
I'll move that we approve the continuance of 2 members to the Independent Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move on to item 3, which is a review of the conceptual site plans and related costs for Rincon Foothill, Carpenter Middle School, Carpenter High School, and Summerlin. And we'll start with Rincon. Robert Robles is here. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you very much.
May I interrupt, please, for just a moment and break protocol? President Schaefer and trustees, before we begin the architectural plans, I believe our Assistant Superintendent, Cindy Abbott, is going to provide us a framework for the work that we're about to begin this evening. We want to appreciate and thank everyone in advance for taking the time to be here tonight, and know that this is a very laborious process and also one that we know is going to render great benefits in the end and to accommodate the timing tonight. So we apologize for the order of the schools and the sequence. We just really wanted to make sure we were getting on the calendar so we can bring information to our trustees in a timely way, so that if there is work to be started or scheduled over the summertime months, that we would have some direction there. And having said that, I'm going to just take a couple of minutes, if you don't mind, if we could introduce Maureen Fitzgerald.
Oh, yeah.
Please, I know you wanted to, trustees.
We did.
So I'm giving you the gentle reminder to do so.
But if it's not on our agenda, we forget.
That's why you have this great team here. So we're here to remind you.
Thank you.
You wanted us to.
Yes.
Okay. Maureen Fitzgerald is,
Hi there.
with your permission, our new Chief Business Officer for the Carpinteria Unified School District, following in the footsteps of other fantastic leaders, and in particular of late, our Assistant Superintendent, Cindy Abbott, who is beginning another phase of her lifestyle and career as a retiree from the Carpinteria Unified School District. So please welcome Maureen, please.
All right. Welcome. If you'd like to say something, you're more than welcome to come up.
And while she thinks about that, I'll say a few words, because you know me, I'm always short. I'm always lacking some words. Please, Maureen, welcome. Join us here and say hello. We're looking forward to receiving both of her youngsters, both boys, in our middle school next year. So I was able to spend a little bit of time with Maureen today, but she had a very busy day. She spent the entire day prior to meeting with me with Darlene and visiting schools. Pleased to say I was not recognized because I was wearing jeans and boots. I'll talk to you more about that later. But it was nice to be incognito, and so they were out on the campus, and there was a sighting of the superintendent without her high heels on. And Maureen comes to us from a variety of experiences in the business sector of school finance. And I'm excited that she's joining us. She has a lot of connections across the state and at the state level, and she brings the systems thinking forward. And so we had a chance to kind of think about what might that look like for our district moving forward in terms of a consistent approach to how we do business and how we pay bills and how we meet the needs of our constituents, et cetera, and support schools, and particularly in the classroom. She kept using the word opportunity, and I was like really impressed by that. I'm sure you're not surprised to hear that. So, Maureen, please, apart from your husband and your 2 boys and a dog, you're on the house hunt. A few dogs.
So we're obviously, I'm very excited to join the Carpinteria family. I am from the Santa Cruz Monterey area, so this area is very familiar to me, as well as having family both have a home here as well as within an hour and a half south. So it's very exciting to get closer to that. But I am actually even more excited to be able to bring my kids here and be part of the community and really help continue some of this great work that's being started and be part of all of the opportunities, there we go, the opportunity word, for all of our kids. As I've been in the business side of schools for a very long time, there's a 20 in the number, but I'm not going to give away my age. And it's something that's been a passion of mine to not just be that business person. I have entrenched myself both in the educational program and in the empowerment of students to move and achieve, especially in underserved areas. So I hope to bring that passion with me, as well as lots of pets and dogs, and find a home that is going to serve us and be a great place to start another chapter.
All right. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, Maureen. All right, Miss Cindy, to provide the framework for our work this evening.
Okay, so we continue with our more detailed discussions of our site conceptual plans. So tonight we're going to cover Rincon, Carpinteria Middle School, Carpinteria High School, and Summerlin School. So that at the end of this evening, we will have covered all of the Carpinteria campuses. So you have a sheet in your agenda with a time schedule, and of course we're about 15 minutes behind. So we were going to try to keep to the timeline, the minutes assigned to each topic. So for each site, in general, there'll be 10 minutes for the architect to discuss their, go through the conceptual plan, and it'll be up on the screen for you to look at, and you have a hard copy of that as well. There will then be 15 minutes for the site committees. Hopefully the site committees from all of those campuses are present tonight, and they will have an opportunity to speak about their work and discuss their priorities, and then there will be 20 minutes for you all to have a discussion and ask questions. So that's the framework of it. And then we don't have a slide this time, so I was trying to remember what the big questions were that we want to be able to think about as we're looking through the conceptual plans. And the first big question is, it's related to the scope of the projects, because the committees worked with the architects on what they thought their site needs were. The facility master plan, as it was developed, estimated budgets for each of these sites. And so now we have to look at the scope of what's in this conceptual plan. In some cases, the scope has changed. There may be things that the site committee feels are important for their campuses to have that were not envisioned originally in the master plan. There may be changes in the scope because there is work that needs to be done that would be required by the state architect, so that would be included in the scope. So we're looking at all of those changes, and then in the context of the budget as well. So our architects will be discussing the budget, and just like your typical home remodel, the budgets that they're estimating for the scope envisioned by the committees is higher than what was envisioned in the facility master plan. So we need to be thinking a lot about what that scope of that project should be as we go forward. So that's one of the big questions. The next big question is what is the role of technology in our schools? Because on most of our campuses we have computer labs, and a lot of our teachers and campuses are moving towards using computers in the classroom, and there may be less reliance on computer labs. So that's an example of technology where we have buildings that were built to house computers, and we may not use them in the same way anymore. So the role of technology is going to be really important as we go through in designing and building our campuses. So those are the big questions to be thinking about as you listen to our architects talk about the scope of the projects. And so I think we're going to go ahead and get started with Rincon, and this is Robert Robles who will be presenting. And I think, Joe, are you going to be the timekeeper again? No?
signs.
Okay,
Good.
Jolene's going to be the timekeeper. So, because we're starting late, we're starting at 6 p.m., so we have 10 minutes or so to do that. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. So let me just recap, refresh everybody's memory about what we discussed last time we were here about the conceptual plans for Rincon Foothill High Schools. If you look, Jolene, do you mind giving me the mouse so I can use the pointer? Thank you very much. So, for those that don't know, Rincon Foothill High School is located on the west side of this tract for the high school, Carpenter High School. And you can see right here the existing parking lot, an existing yard for the water company that the water company uses. And there's also some constraints down here related to the water line that feeds the high school. And then up here towards the north of the parking lot, you can see the existing modular buildings that we are replacing as part of the bond measure. And it's a total of 4. So moving on, working with Rincon High was really great. They were really great to work with. They had very, very clear ideas of where they wanted to go and what their vision was, so they made our job very easy in that sense. What they came in with is they were looking for sort of a reinforcement of the school's identity as its own sort of insular environment. And basically the layout is very similar to what we have now, except it's a little more separated. Instead of having all those 4 of the existing modular buildings all in one row, we were trying to come up with a way of having a courtyard feel to the layout. Well, we really couldn't, given the site constraints, given that there is an easement on the west side of the lot that we expect is going to constrain this, and we're waiting on, we are going to get confirmation on that with boundary survey. But the other aspect of it is, so that will constrain it a little bit, but we felt that at least we could try to hint at a courtyard layout by separating some of the buildings, making it less like a row of train boxcars, if you will. But the layout is still very much similar. We have the admin building in front, which is sort of the gatekeeper of the campus, and we have the 3 other classroom buildings further down the site, up the site. One of the differences between what's there now and what the school site wanted to see is they wanted, we showed them a separate modular restroom building, which is very similar to what we're providing for other sites. And with that, we had the opportunity to provide not only 2 restrooms, a boys' restroom and a girls' restroom, but also a gender-neutral facility as well. As far as the classrooms are concerned, 2 classrooms are what we would just call general classrooms, and the one furthest to the north is a STEM classroom, which is a project-based learning environment. Now, as far as the parking lot is concerned, we've talked about parking and all of these projects and how in so many ways has driven the layout of projects, as well as in many cases driven the budget way up. There were some things that the site was visioning to improve the traffic flow. Currently, the traffic just comes in through this area right here, and then somehow it makes a very sort of awkward turnaround back into the street. And there is no real formal drop-off passenger unloading and unloading, loading and unloading area for the school. So we tried to conceptually at least create something like that with diagonal parking and a way to come in, drop off, and come out. So basically it would just be a one-way system, in through here, out through there. So moving forward, in terms of the budget is concerned, I jumped the gun a little bit. Actually, I wanted to show you some of the planning that we did on their admin building. The admin building is a little bit, as we planned it with the school side, is a little bit larger than what their current admin building is. This is roughly 1,100 square feet is what really fleshed out their program. Their current one's about 960 square feet. And they wanted the admin building to act as a gatekeeper for the campus, so we're showing a way that the reception area for the admin building as well as the principal's office would be acting as having a supervision kind of aspect to the campus, where the gate could be opened during major times for large numbers of students are coming in and out, but then when those times are over, the gate can be closed and the occasional visitor would be directed through the reception area and then through this door and then into the enclosed courtyard. So if I'm going to back up and just to show you what's going on here is that this is how you would enter the campus. And I don't know if you can read this, but the school, like many of the schools in Carpinteria that we've been speaking with, is that they had concerns about security and they wanted to create a secure perimeter for their campuses. So in this particular case, we're using the buildings to enclose 50% of the area and the rest enclosed by wrought iron fencing. Now moving on to the budget. Now the budget, if I can just, to summarize, I'll just bring you down to the bottom line, is that with all of these improvements envisioning exercises that we did with the campus, we took paper to pencil and calculator and worked with our cost estimator, and we are unfortunately coming up with a budget for this that far exceeds what was allocated initially. We're at essentially 81% over. It's a very substantial amount. And for a project such as this, where there isn't a lot of parts and pieces like some of our other jobs, the ways to move forward in order to reduce scope and to reduce cost are basically related to removing scope. And some of the things that I came up with, as you asked me to on the last time, is what can be done to try to remove scope and get the cost under control and closer to the allocated amount. And the first thing that we came up with, was a deduction A block of costs and a deduction B block of costs. In this area here that you see here that's called deduct A, we're reducing the size of the admin building back to what it was or what it currently is, and we're deleting the separate modular restroom building from the scope of work. So in other words, this deduct A is really what it costs to bring the campus essentially back to the layout that it currently is, which is the box cars that I mentioned before. Not a separate restroom area. They really liked that, though, to be able to have that supervision of the restroom from the admin building, and that separation is something that they desired. But there is a price tag related to that, and our calculations, the total price tag related to the extra size of the admin building and the separated modular restroom building is to the tune of about $200,000. And the restrooms now would basically be taking a chunk out of the classrooms just the way they are now. So what Rincon is dealing with now is they have two classrooms where they're not fully 960 square feet. They're less than that because the restrooms take some of that real estate. So we would have to go back to that layout with this deduction. Now the second deduction is to remove the parking lot reconfiguration and basically live with the parking the way it is, and also to drastically remove the amount of hardscaping and the effect of the courtyard and that whole concept, and that would yield additional savings. And we're still working on this, and we'll continue to work on this to try to brainstorm other ideas to control the costs. As of yet, I want to say this draft, as of our current draft, and these current deducts, we're about 26% over still. So I want to basically just open it up now to questions that you might have, or maybe go to the school.
I think probably let's hear from the site committee.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then we can have a discussion.
Okay.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you very much. Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to thank Tara O'Reilly, one of the parents from our site committee, for joining us tonight. Unfortunately, our other 2 staff members weren't able to make it. So you've got me and Tara.
Here we are. It's a small school.
Sure. Did you have specific questions?
No, I don't think we had questions. Just maybe input in how we. Now, I mean, do you guys mind if I go ahead? Because this is significantly different than the conceptual plan that we came up with in the facilities master plan that we put together. And I don't know if either one of you had any
I don't know that I
participation in
saw
that.
it. I don't think I saw it.
We weren't involved.
Was
with
that
the
part
plan
of?
at that
But
stage.
was that? I'm just curious because all these sites. I mean, every site is wishing for the stars here, and I'm just wondering if we included any of, Cindy, did we provide the facility master plan to the sites when these site committees, so that they had kind of a framework to work with?
When we talked first with the consultants, it was more like what's your dream?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that's wrong? What can be improved in the campus? What would you have if you could do whatever? If we could do whatever we wanted or needed, thought the school needed, and that's what we worked on and shared with the consultants. I think they probably had an idea of what the budget was, but weren't really able to tell us what it would cover until they were able to put our ideas together with whatever it costs to create it. So we had a vacuum of information as far as that's concerned, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because it's never nice to get everyone's hopes up here, and then we just start whacking away at things, and that's really what it looks like we're going to be faced with here with almost every site. Is we're going to be whacking away at things, and I'm curious. The parking area is parking really a big issue at Rincon? I mean, whenever I visit there, the parking lot's not very full. And
I think in the actually Tara could speak to it better than I as a parent, but especially at the drop-off and pickup times when it gets more congested, it's a very big safety issue because you have cars coming in and out at the same time. You have traffic from the private road that goes up to the farms up above Rincon, plus on Foothill Road there's that pretty big curve. People come pretty fast along there, so if you've ever had that experience of pulling in or out, especially when there's multiple cars at pickup and drop off, having one spot where there's an entrance and an exit can be pretty dangerous.
That was my thought. I don't park at the school or rarely park there, so parking the number of spaces is not so much an issue. It's just the safety.
It's the transition in and out.
The transition, the going in and out. And I guess part of the problem is when you start to make changes, then you have to reach certain standards, and then the price tag goes up from just scraping in a different entryway to having to create a whole new structure.
It just looks to. I mean, I think we could probably accomplish what you're trying to. The idea of dropping off, transitioning off of Foothill, and then having a place to be off the road where you're not competing with that entrance in and out. But not including all of this additional. I mean, you could almost do just a horseshoe there. Seems like that would significantly reduce the amount of site work and paving and concrete sidewalks.
I don't
and
know
still
that we can really speak to what the
maybe
requirements
Robert, maybe
as far
Robert
as
could get up there as well.
The legal aspects of it.
I just think that I'm not sure if you were saying this, Andy, or not, but having a separate entrance and exit would be worth looking into.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I mean, basically, you could
regardless
come
of how
off
the parking
Foothill
configuration is.
I guess on a little, what would that be, to the south, and it just wouldn't be as big of a parking area. or big of a parking lot, and maybe you could reduce the all the sidewalks and the planter, you know, that escalates your cost significantly.
Yeah, I think what we'll want to do is take another test drive on the layout for sure.
Yeah.
And another thing I also think would be a good thing a hopeful thing moving forward is that the current idea that we've been talking about is that maybe we, in the general sequence of construction that will occur on all the sites, is that what we're talking about now, and we've been batting this around, is to do the modular portions first. Mm-hmm. So if we can do the modular portions first throughout the school district, and the school district can achieve favorable negotiation with the modular company, and we know what those costs are out front, that might yield some benefits to all the sites moving
The
forward.
priority in the general plan is to replace the portables, the modulars. what you're talking about, portables.
Replace the relocatables with the new modulars.
Correct.
And the goal was to save money on a bid for many.
Yeah, but I'm curious why we have a plugged design estimate for the modulars when they're already designed, because you've got a $238,000 plug in there for design of the modulars in section 2.
Oh, section 2?
Yeah, plus an escalation on top of the escalated price that we already are seeing.
Oh, what that's related to is that's the cost to actually do the construction drawings related to the site work and getting it through DSA, and then also the construction administration aspect of the job. So even though there is a reduced soft cost, there's still a soft cost related to
So that's
doing
not
modulars.
that's not in the conceptual design estimate up in Unit 1.
Oh, I understand what you're saying is that why didn't we reduce the amount of soft costs related to the modular building and separate that out and achieve some cost savings related to that? I think we were taking a very conservative approach on this budget, but I think if you would like to see it that way, we could break it down that way and definitely would have some savings
the way that the modulars were explained to us, and it really was the big selling point was that they were already DSA approved, and they were essentially a plug-in. I realize that there's site work approvals that are necessary with DSA, but that was where we were going to see significant savings was with the fact that they're already an approved structure with an approved foundation, and that we would see pretty good savings there over a new a stick built or or something that was not necessarily off the shelf.
Yes, what we can do is sort of revamp these costs so that the soft costs are basically there's a separate soft cost prorate depending on what kind of work it is, and I think that. Like I said, what we're looking at here is very conservative. But if we want to play it a little bit less conservative related to that, knowing what we know about the design costs related to the modular buildings, I would be in favor of that.
Okay.
Of making that revision.
And then as far as and not to get too far into the weeds here, but a lot of the drainage issues, I'm mistaken, but this campus was only built 12 years ago, I think. Is that right, Dave? More or less?
Yes.
So a lot of that site drainage and the sewer connections, all that is pretty modern. So we those costs are probably conservative as well, would you say?
I will look at it further. I don't think that we were conservative on the utilities aspect. I really don't, but I do think that we were probably being very conservative when it comes to the other aspects of the site development, such as paving and for the parking lot.
And did we talk to the water district about sharing some of those costs since we do share that parking lot with them? And I think they have an easement.
No, we did not.
We did not.
We did not talk to them about that.
Maybe we could broach that subject. They've got their budget considerations, but it might be worth a conversation with them to see if they could pitch in something, at least for some of the paving.
Yes.
Because it'll be a benefit to them as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. So Maybe somebody can give me the proper contact, to talk to, or and then I'll go ahead and make the speak on behalf of the school district, if you will.
Charles Hamilton.
Okay.
Is the general manager.
Okay, thank you.
Retiring, though.
Yes,
It's,
but he'll know who. He'll pass it along if he needs to.
yes. But go ahead.
No, if you have more questions.
No, I like the layout. I mean, this is kind of what everyone's always wanted, had a courtyard, a meeting area, an outdoor meeting area. I really like the layout. Just your your hardscape costs are, on every, not just this site, but almost every site. I really don't I'm still kind of confused as to why our conceptual costs, which we thought actually were everything in the kitchen sink, we thought we were asking for way more than we needed in the facility master plan, and really it's about half of what we're looking at here, and I'm just, that really is I guess concerning and confusing to me.
Yeah, when it comes to Rincon and Foothill High Schools, a lot of the hardscaping costs is related to that courtyard concept.
Yeah.
Now, for some of the other schools, we've found that the new hardscaping comes into play because you're trying to extend sidewalks to these new areas, so that adds some hardscaping costs. Now, with regard to parking lots and things like that are over and above what the facilities master plan had, obviously that's just over and above cost. And then, of course, there's other costs related to hardscaping on some of the campuses that we found that are regulatory aspects, where we have 1-inch thresholds separating classrooms from the sidewalks that are serving the classrooms, and per accessibility codes, we have to reduce that, and the only practicable way to do that at that point is to replace sidewalks. So it's a combination of all those items, I think, come into play for that. With that.
So Rincon is fairly new, right? 12 years ago. When this was built 12 years ago, were there consideration for design, or was just a need and you just plop in a building?
It was a need. I believe the buildings were not brand new. The Rincon had originally been on a portion of Carp High campus, and then when that went away, they were actually housed at Girls Inc. for a number of years under a waiver, and then we put them in the site that they
So
are,
it's
and they
just a
had their
matter of
own.
putting in a portable, and so these site plans were considered. Okay.
How we could fit it is really how it worked.
Within a pretty limited budget.
Yes, and time frame. I have a couple quick questions, and I'm not sure if you can answer them tonight, but I'm a little interested in a little better numbers on the cost or the breakdown of deduct A, and how much of that is for the separate modular restroom versus the larger admin building.
Yeah, I did not include the breakdown, how it all breaks down, because that's a separate spreadsheet.
Right.
And I didn't want to overload.
Right. Maybe you
so
could
many
just get us
spreadsheets.
that
But I
information.
can,
I don't
absolutely.
necessarily need it this minute, but
No problem.
we should have a survey. I know it's not going to, I know you're going to have to do a new one when we actually start construction, but we should have a survey, I believe, Dave, from when this was done previously, at least enough
Yes.
to give you a real idea of those easements, because there are easements there, as well as some utility boxes.
Now, right now, we're actually going through the district's archives, and we're hoping to turn up something. But Ken Simpson, which is a surveyor that you guys hired to do topographic and boundary surveys for all the campuses, has done his Phase 1 survey, which involves aerial elevations and things like that. And the easement, if it's not identified on that already, it will be filled in. We'll need to have that easement filled in.
Okay.
But I've been told that it's significant, that it's in terms of the width of the easement.
Okay. So the courtyard area, is that at, how do I term this, ground level? I mean, there's quite a height difference from where
Would
the
be.
existing buildings are, and what's the access like? I'm thinking ADA and all of that.
Basically, what will happen is we'll have to create basically bring all the pedestrians up to the level of the building just the way it is now, which is quite a lot higher than the parking lot. So we'll have to bring them up to that level. So the courtyard is really more, it won't really be an actual flat courtyard. It actually will have some slope to it.
It'll be sloped.
It's more an implied courtyard of anything.
Okay.
And most of it actually occurs within the easement, which is if you're going to have some landscaping and things like that, or maybe just some paving and landscaping and paving, that's something you can have in an easement, whereas you can't put a building in an easement. So that was part of the went into the concept.
Okay.
So they couldn't build there, but visually and aesthetically, it would feel like something like a courtyard.
Mm-hmm. Probably costs more money, but any thought given to a deck as opposed to a sloping courtyard?
No, we have not, and didn't thought about. You mean like using boards instead of concrete?
Yeah, and I wouldn't really say boards because
but
of the upkeep, but
Yes.
composite materials.
No, we haven't taken a look into that.
It's probably very expensive, but I don't know how it compares to what you're talking about.
It would take a little more study to figure out what
Okay.
the cost difference would be between an elevated deck. It might be diminishing gains. You take one away, then you put another in, and it may not be vastly different.
Well, the reason that concept, I've thought about that for many years, the reason that concept is intriguing to me is it gives you flat space, obviously, and you can put tables out there for your eating areas and all of that. It seems like it would be more usable than just sloping ground, but I don't know if that's true, and I also don't really know what I'm talking about in an expense. We're already over cost, but I'm just kind of curious to examine all of those things. So, just a thought.
Okay.
So I'd like to hear from the site and see where your priorities are as far as what you don't want to lose and what you can lose, or what you're willing to lose.
Okay.
Or not get, I guess, not lose, but.
Well, I appreciated what Robert said when he first introduced the concept plans here for Rincon, as he talked about Rincon finding its identity and using space to do that. This idea that with new buildings, what a great opportunity to for students and for staff to hold their heads a little higher, to feel pride in that space. And so we're also looking at a meeting courtyard space for lunchtime, for assemblies, things like that, to have this idea that we are one school and that we are connected, that we are in it together. So the space allows us to develop that atmosphere, to develop that personality of the school, and so. With the current setup, students do not have one designated area during break time. They don't have one area where we can all come together outside to be together. And so if you stop by during our nutrition break, you'll see sort of different pods of students that find their break area on a table that's on that slope or right next to it. And I think that just aesthetics goes a long way in helping people appreciate where they're at. And I know new buildings will do that, and so the priority is the new buildings. And then, from what I've gathered from everyone, second is a meeting space, a courtyard space that allows us to gather outside. And I think third is really looking at that parking area. I have a lot of concerns about the coming and goings of cars, especially right now we have a basketball hoop in the parking lot. So between having kids playing basketball, cars coming in and out, it just creates a lot of potential for problems, and I'm very thankful nothing's happened up to this point that I'm aware of. But I think having a separate entrance and exit will help a lot with the flow of traffic and keeping people safe. So those are some of the thoughts I had on priority, and want to see from a parent's perspective if...
Yeah. I really wouldn't disagree with with anything that you've said right now. It just looking at the budget the way it is with what it is that has to be done with it, which is basically replacing the modules, which is the entire campus. So it's like there's not going to be much room in the current budget for. It seems like I'm doing almost anything beyond just replacing the buildings. So I don't know how much leeway we're going to have, except for maybe which way they get placed, and then maybe for some future fundraising to create the atmosphere that we would really like to see in a campus, to make it feel like a campus and not just a series of classrooms on a.
Well, it might actually end
slab.
up being like Robert was saying, a phased approach.
Right.
You know, to where initially we replace the
What has to be
buildings.
replaced,
Yeah, the
right.
buildings and the administration, and then have these either add alternates or on the where if your bids come in lower than anticipated, you can add other pieces, or they can become future, so that as we progress through the bond, and we end up with, if we do end up with extra revenues or state matching
State
money,
funds.
we can do these other things that are as important. They just maybe aren't as
It
necessary.
seems to me that in the concept, at this phase, it would seem short-sighted to say not add that extra bathroom module, because once you cut it out of a classroom, you're not going to get it back. So just as that phasing goes, it seems like that's a piece we wouldn't want to lose.
Well,
And
you might be able to
especially-
keep that and reduce the size of the administration building. That might be a trade-off.
That's the point of getting that breakdown a little further.
So I appreciate you guys, the work you've done, and I don't think anybody disagrees that this is a really very nice plan, and that it would be fantastic to be able to create that identity that you've alluded to, Barnaby, for the site, because it has been kind of lacking, just a place for everyone to congregate and get together. I think that's very important, and I think the board, that's always been a goal of ours since the beginning of this process, that we recognize that Rincon needs to have that that identity, that separate, that really makes them a unit.
I think part of what we're going to find out also in this process is where the boundaries are, the hard and the soft boundaries, and where things can go. And then that will make this visioning process more real going forward. It's like, okay, do we have an extra 5 feet there, or, a foot and a half, or nothing? And so then, like we said, this was just a dream. If we could have everything we wanted, and now we know some of the constraints weren't going to allow us to put the buildings in sort of a circular to create an enclosed courtyard. So we have the concept here. So I think it's going to be important, whatever we end up finally doing in this phase, will be to include what we might what will be the next phase, so that we're not having to undo something in order to go forward.
Well, I think in all these processes, each site, I think it'd be really important that we start talking seriously with American Modular, and tell them that we don't expect to be paying what they're quoting us, and that they need to sharpen their pencil. And then there are other modular companies out there that offer similar products, and I think because we need to have real numbers here. We can't just have this inflated number based on you're buying one, and when we're actually going to be buying 60 plus. And that should be we should receive a significant savings as a result of that. And I think it's important as we progress here that we start getting closer to a real number for that. Otherwise, we're just kind of talking pie in the sky. And we're not going to really be able to drill down on our budget unless we have some closer to real numbers.
We will we'll press the manufacturer further on that. We did get some numbers from them, but I think moving forward as we develop a little bit further, we actually see what kinds of options, we're talking about, and the actual configurations of the building, because this right now are just really diagrammatic. Maybe we can get them to give us more.
Yeah, but
better
their Gen
cost.
7s they're modular. I mean, their foundations are. It doesn't matter if you're adjacent or separate. The foundation's going to be very similar.
Yeah.
And the finishes are, those are the structure itself with all the accoutrements. I'm sure they can give us a price, and they should be able to give us for that quantity. That's part of this process, is that we start getting some real numbers from them, not a retail,
Sure.
Onesie twosie thing.
We need to reach out to the manufacturer again, have a sit-down meeting with them.
Yeah, I think
and
they
talk
should-
about
I think
the
they-
aggregate of the project.
I think they need to come down here, and we need to have a meeting with them.
Sure, absolutely. And then on this project in specific, I think kind of like we were talking about, is that this has been a really great visioning exercise, and it had a lot of benefit because we know what their dreams are, what their dream campus would be. And whether or not we'll be able to provide this exact blueprint remains to be said, but we know what our goal is, so it's been very valuable. Now, moving forward, I'd like to ask the trustees, in terms of our efforts, I would like to study this further in terms of phasing, because that might help us a little bit to be able to see what is the sort of bare minimum that we can do, and still try to conform somewhat to the dream concept, and then what pieces can be removed without totally taking away the concept entirely, which is more or less deduct A. So I want to study this further. If I can.
I could see perimeter sidewalks around the buildings, and I could see green space, gardens, landscaping in the courtyard area. And as money came in, that could all be done inexpensively.
Yeah, I agree.
And,
I think
and you could fill in the extra concrete later. I mean, it doesn't. But if you had hardscaping just to get from building to building, I think that would be a way to parcel this out.
I agree. We're on the same page. I'm thinking the same thing. Is that we think about bare minimum of what we need to do that is something similar to this concept, and then if funds become available, we can fill in the rest of, not to downgrade it by calling it bells and whistles, but
that's
extras.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. That's all. We'll make it up.
Yeah, I think I.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the middle school. And we got Joe Wilcox here.
Hello.
From KBZ. Welcome.
I do have one comment about what you picked up on the estimate, which I thought was very good, because when we met with the estimator, Robert and I, and we talked about the format, we figured out that all the subcontractors and general contractors should only be on the hard build stuff, so we broke that out. But sitting there, I did think that the soft cost for the portables, you are going to be paying for in-plant inspectors, which is required by DSA. You are going to be paying for on-site inspectors, because you're right, DSA has what they call a pre-approved or a PC modular, but they want somebody in the factory making sure that they're building it per the plan, so there will be those costs. You will have costs for mechanical engineer to hook up plumbing. You will have costs for fire alarm, because that doesn't come with it. And we'll have costs for electrical. So there are some costs.
Fire alarms are not integrated into the units?
It's probably an option, but it has to tie in with the campus-wide system, so you can't just pick a generic fire alarm that is not coordinated with the rest of the campus.
Agreed, but I mean, you could have all that done in a factory, which is a lot.
Yeah, and I don't know
cheaper
if that's in the cost for the master plan for the 250 square foot. I just don't remember. I was just sort of thinking what other costs that we aren't thinking of.
Okay.
And then the other debate we had, just kind of be an open book, because we decided on the 20% contingency. We debated, I said, well, maybe 10. And if you look at my high school, I used 10 and I forgot to change it to 20 because I thought it was high, but we wanted to be conservative at this level. And at the Saturday retreat, I talked about the Morro Bay experience with the pool. So I just wanted to talk about that just briefly.
But I think as we progress here, we need to start getting closer to real numbers. And that's why I was emphasizing, that we need to start talking to the modular
How do I go forward?
people.
Okay, so I'm starting with the middle school, right? Okay, so I'm going to start with the middle school, and this is the same site plan that you saw back on April 26th. There's an aerial view of the campus now, and if I can get this, these are the existing portables that we're going to be relocating. You'll see in the new layout, these are the portables on the back half of the campus that we're going to take out. You're going to see the track reconfiguration, and then you're going to see in the new plan some modernization for the multipurpose building, some talk about how we handle the entrance for security. And what I've done in this presentation, which is different than the last one, is I included an existing campus map in case we need to refer to it for details. So as we saw back in April, we've reconfigured the modular buildings to take this crescent shape so that it's more visible from the main campus, and this is sort of its own little zone, and there is a restroom building right at this end of this group of four. So it's two groups of four. One has a restroom building. They would like to expand their garden area back to this area. And they were saying that these existing portables are hard to kind of visualize and see and keep everything safe. And then they're thinking about some of this space would be given to the district offices back there. Not district office, excuse me, maintenance facility for parking. Yeah. Yeah. That's the $500 a square foot module. We've decided with a group that the back half of the MPR will be the new band room and textbook storage, because it's full of textbook storage right now, as well as custodial space. In the estimate, we've used every square footage to modernize all the classroom spaces. And if you recall, we decided that it would be less expensive to tear down the existing kitchen and build a new kitchen on this end of the home ec building. And then I also mentioned that we're going to create a single point of entry at the front of the school. And John Merritt just sent me an email today saying that there have been some safety committee meetings, and we need to open that up better so if there's better visibility and maybe some hardware that actually has a buzz in so that people can't just come in willy-nilly. So that's something that we have to talk about for security. The numbers for the cost estimate again, this campus was about $761,000 over budget. I did it a little different than Robert. I haven't published it yet, but what I did is I added another column, and on the right side of these columns, I took items that were not in the master plan and pulled them out. I took and reduced square footages of various things to see what I could get it down to, and I was able to pull it down to only being $380,000 over budget, and I can provide that after this meeting. And the way I did it is I reduced paving, I reduced landscaping, and I reduced some of the modernization of some of the classroom buildings, but I kept the multipurpose in, and the kitchen in, and the home ec in. And there is a cost in there to reconfigure the track.
You kept that in there?
I kept it in
All
at
right.
this point. So I'm open to have the committee talk about if they like the plan, and sort of like we did the workshop on Saturday. It's kind of an open
Be
book.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to hear from the site as well.
Hi. Hello. Good day. We're hoping that once you negotiate the costs of the modular buildings, we can afford everything that we have up there. Let's cut to the chase there.
We'd like that too.
So I like the new picture. I haven't seen the latest one. Nor have, as a site committee, we've gone over the budget or prioritized what's on there. It's kind of, you want to see the cost of everything and, what's possible. And knowing that there's still uncertainty with the numbers, I would say everything that we brought up so far is on our list and a priority. When you think of the needs and go back to the facility master plan, of course, the classrooms is the greatest improvement. The positioning of modular classrooms where we can see them, there's no blind spots. It's still a very open concept, which is part of the beauty of our school. We have a glorious campus, so we're excited about the potential for that configuration. You can tell the NPR once had its glory days, and it's gotten to a state where there's no heat in there. The bleachers are hard to manage, the acoustics are poor, the lighting is poor. So we're really eager to kind of establish that or revitalize that and bring it back to a spot where we can use it for classes and different groups and presentations, and our band can actually perform on the stage.
So would the band room is going to be the shower area, the old shower and the existing band room?
Correct.
Is that
When you think of the back of the NPR, there is
below the stage.
Correct, below the stage. On the right-hand side, there is where the current band room is. There's actually more room on the other side where the showers are, the way the walls are configured. So they would take that larger space over there, clean that out, and then the other side will be book room and storage space where we'll need for the chairs and such for the NPR.
And then the stage is getting redone as part of that as well?
There's no major reconfigurations of the stage. The footprint is sound. It's the
hardware,
electrical, the lights, the sound. There's no audio. Well, there's no heat in the room. Items like that.
Okay.
And our band program deserves a real band room. I know you agree with that. And then, yes, I feel for them in their, they don't complain, but they deserve more. Okay. Our food service staff does a wonderful job working with the space that they have, but they started with the snack shack, and they're still preparing meals out of there, and we're still serving as many students as we can as quickly as possible. So they need the space. And by demolishing the existing kitchen, that kind of allows us to build, and I'm sure he talked about that in the past, where we can possibly build the new kitchen while the same one is still operating. And then once that is out there, that gives us a lot more room for lines and the flow of traffic, particularly in inclement weather. I know we didn't get any, but if it were to happen, we're very thankful. So at this time, the questions, is kind of a lot on the plate for our site.
You guys have questions?
I think it's a great improvement, especially for the band students, as my son is one of them right now, and I think they're in there with fans or something, right, to help with the heat on the hot days. And
yes.
Right. So that would be a great improvement.
You guys have feedback? Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of things to remove. I mean, I think the similar approach to the other sites, in that we can break things out as so that we do stay on budget, and then. But as far as priorities go, I mean, it's tough to break stuff out, right? Yeah, there's not a whole lot there.
Yeah, and there's a few other items that have popped up based upon need. We have in our main building, the south-facing walls get really hot, and that's just something we need to fix.
Yeah, no, I remember sitting in those buildings, eons ago.
There's a line item in the estimate for fixing those south-facing windows.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that just putting like
Shade
a
trellis device.
trellis out in front? You can get one of those umbrella things that rolls out.
Just awnings.
A little awning.
A lot of awnings.
I would say the kitchen remodel is a big priority because it's kind of tied to the whole food services thing, and we really want the kids to be able to eat.
And be more efficient.
And be more efficient, yeah.
So they have time to actually eat.
Yeah. So that's a big one for me, besides the modules.
Yeah, I agree. I'm confident that we'll be able to get our whole.
Well, I think with the
we're excited.
If we can get a realistic price for the modulars, I think you're pretty close to budget.
Exactly, we're not far off like some of these other schools.
Yeah. Okay. Great. you have anything you want to add, Jay?
No, I support what I've heard. And
Okay, good deal. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right,
Great.
now we're ahead of schedule. Yeah, well, they got a lion's share of it, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see which way is the high school.
Now we're going to the
Now what are we doing?
high school.
Carpentry High School, and again, I'll repeat myself, this is the same presentation back in April. We have an aerial view if we need to refer to it. Again, as Robert said, and we kind of had this idea about 3 or 4 weeks ago, that the district could give a green light to start replacing portables, then we'll have a better idea on how to adjust the budgets as we go. And I agree, we should sit down with American Module and say, hey, we're buying 60 of these. So these are the portables that we'll be taking out all along here, all along this area here, and back here by the gymnasium. And then you're going to see a new science wing, a new administration building, and a new auditorium building. This is the existing campus map. I threw that in case we need to know a certain class number or something. Again, now what we've done is we have a group of modulars back here replacing the others. We've saved that green space that is there now. We're going to have a bank of modulars along here. This is the science wing, which is, we've talked with the science teacher about being able to use this patio area for outdoor experiments and shooting rockets up. And we actually took 2 relocatables and put them in this area. Cindy had mentioned that technology is really important. If we determine that we don't need as many computer labs, we could reduce the number of modulars, and that's another area of getting the cost down. In this design, we have a new administration building right here, a student services building with a new bus drop-off. It comes through here, so we've eliminated this front parking lot, what I call the front parking lot towards the admin, and we've converted the existing admin into 2 classes and some storage, because there's all kinds of C-train storage bins out here by the gym. And we've expanded this green space here that they thought would be nice to have. And then we've created a whole entry plaza along here, so if there's an event and the public parks here and the parents and grandparents, they can come to a plaza and meet and then go into the auditorium. I can say that the new admin building was never on the original plan. So I still think it's a great idea. I still think it creates a new entrance to the campus. It creates a hub. Right now, the admin building's kind of hidden, as we all know. And the numbers are the same as they were before. And when I went through and did my add and subtract and so on, I was able to, back in April, we were over by $6 million. I was able to get that down to $3 million, basically cut it in half. And that's by reducing the square footage of maybe 1 or 2 modular buildings, reducing the square footage of modernization, and reducing the paving issues. As Robert mentioned, and we kind of joked about it at the Saturday workshop, it's form follows parking, and it really does add up. You'd be surprised. Mm-hmm. So now if Carpenter would like to come up.
Yeah.
Good evening. Let me introduce to you the committee. We have Mr. Blair, who is representing our parents. We have Mr. Diamond, who's representing our staff. We have Ms. Keating, who's representing our classified staff. And we also have Mr. Latham and Mr. Cooney, who are probably driving because I just texted them, or they're watching on television. But I think the concept is very interesting for us. Right now, we currently have an issue of people trying to find the office. We have to remember that Carpenter High School, when it was originally designed, was never finished. It was built in sections or throughout the years. So they basically built it as they need it. So the F wing was built in 1963, and the rest of the wings were added. We actually don't have an E wing because it's supposed to be right in front of the F wing, but there's nothing there. We are supposed to have a swimming pool, but we don't have one. So there's a lot of things that were in the original drawings that are currently not there. The administration building was never finished. Actually, it was they just finished, put a wall there because that was as much money as they had back then. But at the same time, we have to remember that we don't have any storage on our campus. The storage facilities are going to have to go once we begin the modernization. And at the same time, we need to take into consideration that instruction is changing. I know that we are adding probably additional classrooms, but currently we have a space crunch when we're trying to have a college workshop here or testing here, or we want to have parent meetings here. We only have one room that is available to us, which is the library. So when we have Get Focused, Stay Focused workshops, or when we do testing, AP testing, the library is out of commission for those days. So the entire month, basically the entire month of May, our library is out of commission for our students. And that includes the MMC. But I think that's enough for me. I would like for you to hear from the committee members on how we came about to the current concept. And I think they have great ideas, they have great input, and I think the community will be proud of the campus that it's going to be, Carpinteria High School, in the future. I always thank our community for doing this for us. This is an investment in our future. This is an investment in our country. So thank you. I don't know who wants to go first.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I concur with the vast majority of the plan. I think it's sound. The creation of a student services admin building over towards the front of the entrance plaza makes a lot of sense, because what I think Joe neglected to mention is that it frees up the existing space for additional classrooms, which are desperately needed. So I know sometimes there's a reluctance to add space for administration, but here you're actually getting classrooms out of it, and you're putting it towards the front where the entrance plaza would be, so that people don't have to navigate halfway across the campus to get over there. I'm always going over there to the business office to pay for fees for my daughters for sports, and you know, it's quite a little hike to get in there. The auditorium location is excellent. The idea of the parking lot being converted to a U and having teacher parking reserved towards the front of the existing large lot is a good one. I hate to see any grass removed in the student quad area, because I've been on the campus several times over the lunch hour, and I think there's kind of an esprit de corps that exists where the students sit in large circles out on the lawn area. Is not that large, you've seen it, but I see them out there and they're all talking and socializing and enjoying themselves. So I would like to retain the lawn.
You're talking about between in the quad area.
In the quad area.
And the plan is the same.
Okay.
Sorry.
I one version of it.
We listened to you.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
One version of it had it being replaced with concrete.
Oh, no.
Pavers, so I would be against that if that were the case. And then I think the location of the science building is excellent, because it's really at the head of the quad there on the left, and where the existing modulars have been. So it's a very sound plan overall. I just wish we could move up some of the Title IX stuff to an earlier point in time, and get the girls' athletic program some of the facilities that they need, like a team locker room and some improvements to the softball fields and that kind of thing. But that's basically my thoughts on it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the time you're putting in.
So from the teacher perspective, we looked at a few different things. As Mr. Blair alluded to, we are big on maintaining green space. We went and visited some campuses up north and looked at the new Gen 7 modular buildings and that sort of thing. And one of the things that stands out on a lot of high school campuses, if you go visit other high school campuses, is it's very institutionalized.
Concrete.
It's concrete everywhere. And it builds anxiety. It builds anxiety just walking out there as a teacher, as a guest, as a visitor. I think that one of the great things about Carpinteria High School is our campus is like a park. It feels like a park. It feels comfortable. And I think that attributes to a number of our discipline issues we don't have. Students like being there. So it's comfortable. It's not anxiety feeling. And I think that's something we'd like to maintain. We talked about that in the classroom space as well. The natural lighting in a lot of the Gen 7 buildings we thought was a really big thing to do. The windows just feeling open so that students don't feel like they're in a cave all the time. right? And teachers don't. Teachers feel comfortable in the environment they're in. Happier people will learn better, right? So that's a great sentence from a teacher. All right. As far as the classrooms go, one of the things we really liked when we visited and we looked at the Gen 7 modular buildings, one of the campuses we went on had square buildings, square classrooms. And we really liked the setup of the square classrooms, and we asked for that in the plan. You can see they're almost square. They have to be offset a little bit because there's a teaching wall that's involved with the projector and that sort of thing. But the nice thing about a square building from a teaching perspective is I can stand in the center of the room and be feet away from almost every single student. Versus my current portable, which some of you have been in, it's got stadium seating, thanks to one side sinking into the ground. But it's very long and narrow, so it's very easy to get trapped as a teacher to be in one area of the classroom and not be able to communicate with all your students very effectively. It also helps for students' presentations. Students can stand from wherever, and they don't feel too far away from any certain other student. The computer labs on our campus are in need of some work, and we've talked about moving the computer labs to the back side of the modulars. Does this work? Back over here, grouping them together, and that's been an ongoing discussion. There are times on our campus where every single computer lab is booked every single day. Our teachers are using that technology. I know our internet is getting updated as far as the Wi-Fi, and I'm not sure to the timeline of that. I'd also like to agree with what Gary said, the moving up the timeline. Let's get it going, I'd love to see this started as soon as possible, and I know there are different constraints that go on to that with that. I like the idea of the administration building being moved up front for a number of reasons. It keeps guests from wandering our campus. We have guests show up at the gym, and they navigate all the way through the center campus to get to the office. So I think having it up front as just a single point of access to kind of monitor on and off traffic. And again, with the removing that front parking lot, this was something Pat and Van Latham we're big fans of, is we gain almost a secondary athletic field there. We measured it out. We guess it's about half of a soccer field. If you come during lunch, kids are playing soccer. It's great, and we'd like to continue that. We'd also like to use it for athletics facilities as needed. The auditorium, again, we're shooting for the Ferrari. So when we get down to the numbers and we have to start cutting things, that's when reality sets in. But the dream with the auditorium is, if you've been to our cafeteria for a welcome meeting, it feels janky, right? And we don't want to feel janky. We want to feel prideful, and we want to have a beautiful facility because we have a beautiful campus. So let's have our guests walk into a place where they feel like, oh yeah, this is a well-maintained place, it's a beautiful campus, and that's their first taste. Not their first taste is our cafeteria where the blind things, I don't even know if they open or not, but I would be afraid to move them because I think they might fall off the wall. I guess my only real comment is let's move it up, let's get it going. We want to see it.
I've got a question for you though. Because we haven't. I think a number of us went and toured the Gen 7s.
Yeah.
When we were doing the facility master plan. Do the teachers like the Gen 7s?
The teachers we spoke to really liked them. We saw a history room and a science classroom with students in them, and then without students in them, we met with the teachers. The teachers seemed to really like the space over, do you remember what the other buildings we saw?
Silver Creek.
The Silver Creek ones. The Silver Creek ones seemed more like a souped-up portable.
Was this Napomo?
This was...
It was Napomo.
Yeah.
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 They have both of them there.
Tech or whatever.
They have both of them at Napomo, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
They liked the space, and they really liked to be able to control the light, to be able to control the natural light versus the fluorescent lights. Just it helped them control the mood a little bit. One of the things they didn't like were they were going one-to-one with technology. They didn't like the power strips coming out of the ground, and we talked about the boxes and how we would try to improve on their scenario for that. One of the new tech rooms, it was a combined lab lecture room, which we've talked about and considered. If we were a high school of 3,000, I would be in favor of the combined lecture lab because you have teachers teaching 5 periods of chemistry or 5 periods of physics or 4 periods of physics and AP physics. What we have is kind of unique to being small is we have teachers like myself who teach chemistry, physics, AP physics, and when I set up a chemistry lab and then I have physics students coming in, now I've got to swap out equipment. If I'm doing labs on the same day, I can't really do that in a lab lecture combo.
So you'll be able to move from one lab to the other. So you'll have a physics lab and a chemistry lab and a biology lab.
Yeah, so that would be the goal. If we had all the money in the world, we'd make all of them all things, right? We'd make them all biochem physics labs. We could put anatomy in there and everything as well. But we're going to have to specify to some degree. There's no point in running a gas line into our physics lab because we're not going to use gas in physics. If we need to, we can use the chemistry lab. Where there's no, there's certain things we don't need a fume hood necessarily in the physics lab because we're not using chemicals in a fume hood. Things like that. It's nice, especially we try at the high school to have multiple teachers teaching the same class, so there is that collaboration that goes on. It's not always possible. I'm the only one at the high school with a physics credential, right? Yeah, so there's no one else that can teach that class, so I'm the only one. But it's also nice in that case where we can set up a lab, and I do this with Coach Halleck, Mr. Halleck, all the time. I'll set up the chemistry lab. We'll do it in regular chemistry. He'll do it in ChemCom. And so our students are getting the same experience in the lab as far as regardless of the teacher. As we move forward with our new hires, that's another goal in the department is to create more of a lab structure to our courses, lab manuals, things like that. If you'd like to see our chemistry lab manual, I can ask for it. I'll get it over to you. But trying to get our kids doing hands-on activities in the sciences as much as possible and having the space to do that. Right now, what we're looking at for next year is we will have the chemistry lab, which will have to double as our bio lab as well, because we'll have two new biology hires that we hired 2 months ago, something like that, and we're really excited about it. I think they're great candidates. We gotta jump on the game in that case, and I think we got some really good people. And then we'll have our physics lab, which is that C2 room. I know a number of you have been in there with me in a lab scenario. It's designed for 20 kids. It's not a 36 style room. We try not to get our chemistry numbers up to 36, but it does happen. And just with scheduling issues, sometimes we'll have classes that are big. So we need that space. And so one of our new hires will be in the I don't have the C4 or whatever it is, and then one will be out in P9 or something like that. And so for biology's sake, we're going to have to figure out a scenario in which we can use those labs in the interim until we get the new labs figured out.
So in general, you guys like the Gen 7s that take it?
You got to cut me off. I talk all day for a living, so I will just go on and tell you what I think.
That's great. No, I appreciate that, Danny. So looking at the whole plan here, I'm curious if we're gaining some classroom space in the old admin building. Could we maybe put those additional modulars that are added on there kind of on the wish list? Yeah, that'd be a significant savings right there.
So kind of bringing that up, we're going from 10 portables to 17 modules. So can you remind me what they all are? So back here by the girls' softball, are those all computer labs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7?
I wish I had a copy of that so I could read it.
I think you're
Oh,
counting
in the conceptual.
I think you're counting the science rooms as portables.
Yeah.
It says new modulars in the back.
No, we're taking the that new line of modulars along the back alley.
By
So we
the
currently have
girls' softball?
11 modulars, 11 portables on our campus.
Currently.
4, 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to 17.
To 17.
We have 17.
No, because there's
10.
5 for the 5
10
for
and
the
then
science
the
building.
science.
Go to the
that's the
next
science
slide, the conceptual slide.
These are going to the science.
See the ones by the girls' softball field? I
We're
count
talking about these ones, or
I count 7 there.
There are 7
2, 3, 4, 5. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay, so what are all those?
Those are going to be computer labs and classrooms. So you're
So
right.
those are brand new classrooms.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then the 2 by admin, what are those classrooms going to be?
They were just generic classrooms for them to put right next to the existing office building, which are classrooms. So one of the things that we've asked to get was like a utilization study for the campus so we
Yeah,
can
that
come
would
down with an actual
be
number.
helpful, yeah.
We haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
So, sorry.
And
So I'm hoping we can
Yeah, I think
reduce,
we can probably reduce
because that's
the
how you
number
reduce
of those.
budget is you reduce square footage.
I have a question too about Title IX compliance. Speaking of,
Title IX?
So I don't see any kind of changes to the gym area for
Yeah.
like the girls.
Yeah, we haven't designed that yet, but we have in the cost
Van's here
estimate.
just in time.
We have in the cost estimate.
That is in your cost estimate.
It's in the cost estimate to totally renovate the gymnasium,
Okay.
all the square footage.
Okay.
And that's when we would handle
But
the
we're not
Title IX.
adding on to it. We're
not
just
adding any square
reconfiguring
footage,
it.
no.
Okay.
Just reconfigure.
No.
All right.
We're still at the master plan phase, and we're not down into the weeds of the walls and so on.
But it's in your budget.
It's
number.
in the budget.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So the site study utilization plan would be helpful.
Who's tasked with that? Site utilization plan.
I believe David did just get it, David, and I just haven't had a chance to see it yet, so.
You currently have it? Okay.
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 Great.
Okay. So that would save some.
Can
That
I
would- yeah.
address the question regarding the portables?
Yeah.
You know, also, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So
yeah.
currently, we have 11 portables.
Yes.
So you have 1, 2, 3 on the left side,
This and this.
and then 10,
This,
1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 on the top, and then the 2 at the bottom near the current administration building. The ones that you see where it's the new science wing, those are classrooms that are coming out of the current science wing.
That's where
which
special
we-
ed is, right?
No,
The
special ed
computer
is
lab. That's where the
People's-
computer lab is.
special ed is down here near the existing office building.
Special ed is right.
So
Oh, those are just gone.
this is where currently People Services is located, right here. These two
Classroom.
are not necessarily, those are ones that we can sacrifice as we move forward.
Used to be
Yes.
here.
The question will be is, what do we use these rooms for in the future? I mean, we can use those
Those
for
are
additional
science.
classrooms, but we also have our current or our future engineering and design program
yeah.
up here. So,
Yeah, drama
That's
in here.
not in there. Right?
and then we currently have to
It
do
is in the
something
budget.
here with drama.
Right.
Our drama program. So if we don't do the auditorium, the question will be is what can we do to increase the opportunities for our drama and our music program? Currently, they use the cafeteria for their class, but we would love to be able to have something for them.
That's the black box.
Yeah.
And at one time, we were considering doing a black box theater back here, or in the current science wing. So,
So it sounds like we've got a fair amount of extra space here.
Classroom
Because
space.
what I heard earlier was that we don't have meeting area currently for
Correct.
for parent meetings or testing or student meetings, but we will have that if the auditorium is included in this.
Correct. So, for example, currently we have the MMC here. If we were to move that, because it's not conducive for instruction, they're pods.
Yeah.
So the teacher really always has 50% of the students are to their back of the teacher. So if we move that to the back, this can now become a meeting room for about 50 to 60 people. That's something we can hold or get focused, stay focused meetings or testing when we need to test for 20 or 30 kids. Right now, at times we need to take up, if we have to test for, like when we do cell testing, we're taking up the cafeteria. When the City College comes and does our assessment, we're taking up the cafeteria for that. So that also impacts our food services because everything has to be served through one line only.
Yeah. Okay. But it sounds like there's a fair amount of room here for reduction in some of this additional space.
Yes.
Definitely
I think
additional
you can.
classrooms, yeah.
Because once you vacate the science rooms, then you can figure out what to do with those 3 classrooms.
Okay.
And the current science wing. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything, but we have our athletic experts here for Title IX questions and regarding the gym. We have Ms. Keating, who can attest to the fact that we're always borrowing her library for everything. And she's always having to send emails to staff saying it is not available for this day. But I'm very proud of the staff and the time that they've put in for this. Being here at 7:15 because we're now ahead of schedule. It's very important, but they do have a vested interest in having this being the best plan if possible.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any more questions?
Just one really quick comment, too, though, about what he's saying about the use of the labs and everything. It really impacts the students when we have to close the labs, the one lab and the multimedia center for testing, for meetings and things all the time, because they depend on those computers to be able to print, because not all the labs have printers in them at this point either. And so I have kids standing out there, just let me come in and print, and so they really quickly run in and print and things like that. But it has, in the last 2 years, increased tremendously the amount of time that students have not been able to be in the multimedia center or in the multimedia center lab, just by nature of all the meetings and all of the counseling sessions and things that go on. So, I mean, I could talk as a parent, I could talk as a muse mom, I could talk about all of these things, but I think that this is a good step in the right direction because we're still cleaning mud out of the back room from the flood the year the school opened. So, we haven't had much change going on in there for a long time, and I think that this is all good steps in the right direction towards providing something that's really important to the students. They have such a sense of pride in their school, and they would have even more when they have the facilities that they can use on a regular basis that are open to them as needed. So that would be my input that I would put in from my viewpoint, from what I see all the time, every day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. My question is, what are your priorities? And I guess to the architects, I assume this will have to be done in phases.
Oh, yes.
So what are your priorities?
From a site committee perspective.
Right.
Obviously, the science building is the most important part of this.
I can agree with that.
We can just build a $20 million science building, and Gerardo can suffer in the heat in his office.
I'd like to ask about Title IX again. So that is a big priority. So is that going to be a big project or can we get that done kind of thing?
Well, we have a significant study. The study shows areas we need improvement on and areas we're doing well in. And if the gym truly is renovated both sides and completely, we shouldn't have any problem if we're paying attention to that as we go forward.
So would that be a priority to kind of keep us out of courtrooms or?
I would absolutely say so. I hope the board has seen the Title IX study that we did.
Yeah,
there were about 18 points of interest that we worked on with Donna Lopiano. And, in some areas she said, you're deficit here. You need to make some improvements there. So, however we're going to respond to either those deficiencies or complaints that come down the line is really a decision of the board, I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
I have one last question. I'm not sure we really got through all the priorities, but do you know, or can you get us the information? What is the number of parking spaces currently versus the new proposed?
Yeah, I don't know that, but I can definitely get it. And I do know that when we talked about eliminating that other front parking lot, I thought this is a great idea because you have tons of parking.
Well, we have tons of parking except at certain times. So I think it is of concern. That's why I want to know the number. How many are we eliminating? Because it looks to me like we are eliminating.
And what also ties into that is that once we get that number, when we go to DSA for our very first job, they're going to say, do you have the code compliant number of accessible spaces?
Yeah.
So we'll have to evaluate that at that time, and that code changes every 3 years.
Okay.
Looks like about 75 spots. If you eliminate that whole front parking lot, because you're not going to add, well, then you add back in maybe 10, so 65.
I think it might be substantial. It's just something I think we need to take into consideration.
The parking question is an interesting one. We do have events where our campus gets covered with cars. We just had the CIF prelims where we didn't exactly follow the parking plan that's in place for the stadium, and the overflow ended up on the street or in people's front yards, and it caused a problem. We got phone calls. So that's a question worth asking, that even just those front spaces in the school there would be significant. One point we feel like we need to bring up as a committee is the idea of the fence, the safety plan overall. Coach Latham and Danny did some really nice work in terms of polling the community and polling the staff on campus. And we were surprised to see that the fence showed up on the last plan that was presented to the board because it was not our recommendation. It was not supported by the staff or by the polls that we did, and I'm sure we could produce those statistics, but we were surprised to see that. We came up with other ideas like lighting at night and access, to the school and different ideas like that, but fencing wasn't a priority, and we felt like we were addressing the fence by moving the administration building up front and making that, the point of entry, so to speak. And understanding that the high school really does operate differently than any other school. It's a free flow type situation where people are going to come and go at all times. We're serving the community in terms of our athletic facilities and things like that. So it was difficult for our group to support the fencing, and we had several conversations with our staff and with community members and things. So just to see it show up was a little surprising, since it was not our recommendation to the.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, I do too, and I actually might be interested if it's easily accessible and seeing a little more about how broad that surveying was.
Right.
Yeah, not necessarily specifically replies. Excuse me, but just want
I'm
to
sure
see how it was done. And
tech savvy geniuses could produce that.
That'd be great.
In a heartbeat. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, that'll be a significant cost too, cost savings.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for all your work. That's a very good plan. Okay, we'll move on to Summerlin.
On to Summerlin School. I'll toggle back here. Okay, as I said earlier, this is the same plan that we saw back in April. And there's your aerial view, and you all know the campus well. I'm kind of calling this the upper campus area here, and the tennis courts is the lower campus area. And I've thrown in the existing plan so you can see the number of classes. On the upper campus, this is just the upper campus. And then the new design, which shows 3 classrooms on the northern part of the upper campus, and the classroom to the farthest to the east is a kindergarten room, which is larger than your 30 by 32 stock classroom. And this includes restrooms. And I mentioned before that is located as close to the parking lot for drop-off as possible for the young ones. Heading to the west, we have a hardscape area. The existing campus has a storage building So we've created a new storage building with a ball wall kind of integrated with it, a basketball court. To the south of these three campuses, we've kind of created an entry plaza with landscaping and benches for students and parents to sit on. There's this view corridor that you can see all the way out here to the jogging track and the turf field. Just to the south of this hardscape is a lunch area and relocated play structure, as well as a swing set, that kind of stuff, and a garden area just to the west of the shade structure. So parents that are sitting here can watch the events on the play field. They can watch people that are coming and going. They can also have a view over to the lower campus, which I think you recall we designed with the committee an outdoor classroom space. And that includes native species gardens, tree of knowledge, which was one of the committee members had shown me a picture of a really beautiful tree at a college campus, and we thought that'd be great for Summerlin School. I think I also mentioned that we walked this campus with the California Department of Education, and they had lots of ideas on how we could spend your entire bond on just this campus. And we've created a green belt zone here for to help mitigate the noise from the traffic, and again for safety as well. In the estimate is also included to try to extend this walkway, because the walkway does not go all the way down to Lilly Avenue. We have a wet zone in the open classroom, outdoor classroom, kind of an art and a wet zone, a presentation area with shade structures, and sort of a log bench setup. You saw this before as well. Summerlin was way over their allotted $2.5 million, which we all call Table 8 from the budget. We're over almost $3 million. I'm not sure how to get that one down. But I'm open to have any of the committee members come up and talk. My guess at this point, because I'm sure somebody's going to ask, what is the cost of the outdoor classroom? And I kind of looked at all the numbers there, and it's more than just the outdoor classroom and the green fuzzy stuff. There's retaining walls, there are walkways, there's irrigation. So my best guess at this time is probably $350,000. That's my best guess at this point.
How about how much have you plugged in there for that track?
I will give that to you.
No, for the outdoor.
Looks like the track at this point, if I'm looking at the right line item, and I can double check while they're talking, is $30,000.
All right.
So we don't want to look at the numbers too much.
Alejandro was here. Good evening.
Welcome.
I was going to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I was going to start with priorities. Many of you know Summerlin School is extremely small. We have 3 classrooms. Well, we have 4 classrooms plus a library that doubles as a classroom, and it's very difficult to have a confidential conversation with somebody during the school day because there is no location that's confidential unless you're sitting at the lunch benches overlooking the freeway and the oceans and trying to speak over the freeway. So from a site perspective, the biggest obstacle we currently have is space. Space to differentiate between the grade levels because all of our classrooms are combo classrooms. Space to provide specialized instruction, special education instruction, for example, speech and language services, counseling services that are confidential. We have a counselor working outside because there is nowhere to have confidential counseling services for students. It's very difficult to provide specialized academic instruction because there's no quiet space. In addition to that, when we break up by grade level, we have a library that's used as an office, that's used as 2 different grade levels instructional space. And it's very difficult for the office coordinator to run phone calls that come through, people that visit, while 2 different instructional leaders, teachers, are focusing on content, teaching content. And then people walk in and all the students turn their heads to look at whoever walked in. So I would say that is our biggest priority. Someone mentioned earlier about the band at the middle school. We don't have a space for band. We use the church across the street for music instruction. We use the church across the street for theater instruction. We're severely lacking different kinds of areas for the programs that are at different sites. Another obstacle is the slant of our green, of our outdoor space. Many of you know you have to walk very carefully if you're trying to go from the office/classroom cement down. I've slipped almost a few times because we don't have a lot of grass these days. There's not a lot of traction, and it's relatively dangerous. We're also missing space that could be used for playground, the track, or a more flat space for a basketball court. The current basketball court and tennis courts are not used very often by our students, and so the idea for the open classroom, the garden space, is that we would use that space on a more regular basis, and it would also be something the community would want to use if they would want to hold meetings in that location.
Since this is a workshop format, I'm going to interrupt a second here. To answer your question, the jogging track was 51.4. I found the specific line item. And then we also had $100,000. I skipped over part of the plan. It's late, I guess, but $100,000 to repave this portion of the street so it feels like it's part of the campus with a decorative paving. And then I didn't mention that this is the admin building for the security issue. And then there's 2 classrooms and restrooms and then outdoor classrooms on the south side of those.
So I'm curious, while you're up there, Joe, this conceptual plan versus the facility master plan, are we adding class space? I think we had about this much space in that, didn't we?
There's your existing campus.
No. From the facility master plan, I think we added some.
You're actually adding one room.
On top of the facility master plan.
Well, on top of what we currently have.
Yeah. But I think in the facility master plan,
I would have to go back and look at the master plan.
We added that extra building.
I'd have to go back and look.
And okay, so I'm going to keep coming back to this. Is that modular cost is, it's actually, for this site, it's almost as much as our budget.
Right.
And something's not computing when we're really not adding any additional modular building.
I did go back and look at the master plan at that Saturday workshop, and you had in the master plan $250 a square foot for the modular buildings, and we used a number in this estimate just a little bit less than that. But you're right, there's more square footage.
There is more square footage.
One more.
Compared to the master plan, I'm saying.
So there's in the old plan, there's like a little office. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rooms.
Yeah, but I think we added that in the master plan, not because it wasn't exactly, we weren't replacing like for like. I think we recognized, or do you remember, Cindy?
On all of the campuses, we replaced like for like. So there's clearly additional space that they're looking at here compared to what the master plan was. And that was just straight across, on every campus. If there were portables, we replaced the portables with the modulars.
Okay, I thought at Summerlin, though, we recognized that they needed more, but I could be wrong.
We didn't do that, although it's clear that there's a need for other kinds of spaces there.
Okay.
So the workroom is currently we have a workroom. It's a very small workroom. It doubles as a teacher's lounge, a bathroom for adults. We wear a lot of hats in different rooms.
I think we all recognize the fact that you have limited space,
right.
Ollie. I'm just trying to get down to, because it really is going to come down to the numbers and figure out, where we can reduce some of these costs.
And so conceptually, if you replace the workroom with the administration building, that is one of the buildings. And so when someone said we're adding one, I think it was Jacqueline said we're adding one, that's the one that she's talking about. If you consider the workroom a current room, then it would be a larger room that would be hold the workroom, but also be the administration building, because at the site right now, we don't have a way to get on campus. We don't have a single point of entry, right? So people can get on campus without checking into the office, and we might not know that they're even there. So that's what the administration building would serve as, is that single point, only place to get in.
I'd like to hear from Tim.
Yep, he's
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Thanks. It's late. I'd like to talk a little bit about the how we got to this plan, because I think we haven't had the opportunity to do that. And then also talk a little bit about the challenges with this site, and understanding that a lot of the costs that we object to, certainly as a school district, are actually baked into the challenges of the site, not necessarily the objectives of the buildings and the schools in providing a teaching environment. So the how of how we got here is initially after the November 19th meeting, we organized quickly. This plan reflects the input of the students, the teachers, the parents, the community, and the taxpayers of Summerlin. So we think that this plan accomplishes quite a bit. Obviously, everybody's got the wish list, but I don't think it's fair to say our wish list is unreasonable. And I'll explain why. So the first thing we did is we actually polled the students. We're a very small community school, and we were fortunate enough to have Nicole have the 4th and 5th grade students write essays. They're here. They're very good. In retrospect, as we look at this plan, they were spot on. They were really quite good. I think the only exception was the zip line from the upper to lower. But as we go through this, the comments that Holly made ring true with the kids. The kids universally say, we don't have room. And if you read through these, it's basically, we don't have a cafeteria. We don't have a multi-purpose room. We don't have a kitchen. We don't have private meeting facilities. There's a lot of deficiencies that we are currently faced with that we think this plan reasonably meets those objectives. We polled the teachers. They're Summerlin's greatest asset. They're terrific people. We talked to everyone there, including Mr. Ramos, who is kind of the spirit of Summerlin. We got their feedback. We interviewed them on the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis today, and we polled their wisdom for the future challenges that we will face, all schools will face moving forward. And so we were greatly appreciative of that. The parents. Summerlin is an incredibly active school. Most schools are, but PFS in particular, Parents for Summerlin, the nonprofit that supports it, the hours that they put into this and their understanding of the problems we face are certainly valuable to the input to this plan. The fellow committee members couldn't be here this evening. Apologies for that, except for Holly. I'd like to thank Nicole Hughes. She's the 4-5 teacher. She gave a lot of terrific input. Judy Holler, I don't think she's here this evening.
They were planning on at 8:15.
Yeah. But she was great from an organizational perspective in keeping us on track to get to where we are. Alejandro Benito, I don't think Alejandro's here.
They're all poppies.
He took a lot of personal time off to go tour the Gen 7 buildings. He is a passionate person about education. Certainly we all are in this room. The fact that we're here at 7:40 in an evening is testament to that. In addition, we kind of got a head start, and a lot of that's thanks to Joe. This is not the first time this site has been visited. In many ways, this was a revisit. We had the benefit of prior work, which really allowed us to quickly address some of the issues that were largely foreign. The accessibility issues with the American Disabilities Act, certainly that's a challenge on a slope school. Some of the issues wrapped around some of the failures of the grounds themselves. So I'd like to thank David Benniger, his expertise was instrumental in guiding us through the practical side of what we were trying to achieve. And so this really is a community effort from the town of Summerlin. We talk about priorities. I think Holly covered most of this, but I will beat it over the head. So safety is a huge issue at Summerlin, and it's a risk daily. There is no viewable spot for the administration to see who comes into campus and who leaves. Additionally, there were, on the current configuration, I don't think we need to pull it up, there are a lot of blind spots. And a lot of the layout and everything on this map address the ability to have a central point, not only to view events that occur on the field for parents, which is nice, but also just being able to keep track. We don't have a lot of staff to keep track of our kids when they are outdoors, and that central point allows one person to view all the goings on the campus at one time. I think that covers that piece, the accessibility piece. Fortunately, we are a school that doesn't have problems with parking. We don't have it. So it's true. We have 3 spots.
That was supposed to be funny, right? Supposed to laugh. Okay.
So.
Well, at least you're not losing any.
Oh, was that in the plan?
That's true. I'll have to pass that one along. The relief. The drop-off, a lot of the cost associated with this plan, frankly, is compliance with the American Disabilities Act. It is a challenging site. It is challenging in another way that I'd like to talk a little bit about, and that is the fact that on the upper campus, the north wall has failed. On the lower campus, on the upper campus, the south wall has failed. On the lower campus, a lot of the costs attributed with green space, which is a wonderful addition to our school, and the gardening program is a huge benefit, as well as the obvious benefits to the community. So I always get confused. The east wall and the south wall have failed. Those are massive derelict structures. So when you look at this plan, I would love to show you pictures, but I don't think you really want to see them. When you look at this plan, understand that a lot of the cost with the lower piece really is not about building something new. It's about solving a problem that has existed for a long time. My business partner, whom I love dearly, has a quote, and I would like to share it with you. It's not the things you don't know that hurt you. It's the things that you believe to be true that do and aren't. So there's a lot of popular misconceptions, I think, that I would like to take this opportunity to address. And one of these misconceptions, and what we've heard from other schools in this process, frankly, is hurtful. The misconception is that money flows from Carpinteria to Summerlin, and that's simply not the case. Jacqueline's board seat is specific to representing the taxpayers of Summerlin. And I think when these 2 school districts merged, of which I, by the way, am a beneficiary. I live in Carpinteria, and I drive my kids 2 hours every day to and from Summerlin. It seems like a lot, and it is. But the misconception is that the money, the board seat, I think there was a wisdom in creating that board seat, and I think we're starting to see the wisdom of that now, which is it's easy for the many to trample on the needs of the few. And I think that kind of gets me to my last point that I'd like to make, to dispel the myth that Summerlin is this burden to this community. And it's not. Measure U is $90 million. The total assessed value of CUSD is $5.5 billion. The total assessed value of the Summerlin school attendance area is $1.1 billion. That means that 20% of Measure U is being shouldered by the taxpayers in Summerlin. And I think that's worth noting. In addition to that, that means that they are contributing $18.7 million to this school district. They're asking for $6 million. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the $2.5 million that's on the plan versus the $6 million in the master plan. The original number was $6 million. It was stated on November 19th publicly in the meeting, and then it was communicated that that number was magically 2.5. You can't work with a school in a challenging location like Summerlin with that kind of budget. It's not possible. Anybody who can walk those grounds knows that's the case. And the other thing I'd like to contribute, besides the measure, besides the Summerlin community's contributions to CUSD as a whole, is also mention the contributions that they make on an annual basis. The Summerlin community, at 20%, contributes $4 million a year to the unrestricted funds of the Carpentry Union School District. The amount of money we're asking in the scheme of things is not that much. It is a school that the community of Summerlin deserves, and it's long overdue. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Can I just say thank you, Tim, for stating that and doing part of my job for me by stating that. So thank you.
Yeah, and one other point, we all benefit from Summerlin in no uncertain terms. I do, my kids do, the students at the high school do, Rincon, Aliso, Catalina, we all do. Thanks.
Any questions?
No, I just have a comment. Very eloquent. Thank you for that. Thank you for the statistics, too. That's a nice thing to have. And regardless of where the geology, I guess, or the geography of Summerlin is, you know, you're part of our district. So, you know, we embrace that. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think Tim pretty much said it all. But I do know that there are parents who are busy making poppies who were planning to be here for Wizard of Oz, the Field of Poppies. So we'll just catch them up when they come up.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Where's my agendas?
Can I ask what our next steps are going to be related to this?
In regard to Summerlin?
All of them.
Well, it sounds to me like we need to have another budget study session.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we obviously have some tough choices to make.
Yeah. I mean, before we can proceed with any plans, you know, any final plans, I think we need to probably drill down the numbers a little bit more, you know, get some more accurate stuff from the manufacturer, and maybe just see. I know we're kind of set on the Gen 7s, but I mean, maybe see if there's an equivalent out there that we can look at. I know Hensel Phelps has a building that they were pushing, or at least a company they work with closely. When we were going through this process, they were pretty involved, or at least they gave money to the Major U fund to help get it passed, and I know they were interested in they had brought up. I can get the guy's contact information because I think he emailed all of us at the time.
So I would be interested in any equivalents that are out there.
Yeah,
I mean, we looked at the Gen 7s, but that is what we promoted to our community as well. So I want to make sure that we're
I just
on
want to
par.
make sure that we're not.
I completely appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not saying we're changing our mind.
Yeah,
I'm just,
yeah.
It's good to compare, but I think we need to have another meeting to with some, you know, kind of updated information, and maybe essentially. I would put it out, have you put it formatted almost like it's going out to bid, is like add alternates for maybe not bid documents, but so that you have we have clear separation from, you know, a base plan and then additional, you know, things that could be added. But basically a phasing plan, yeah. Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yes.
You do, yeah.
I wanted to recognize that as well. I think because now we've had time for all the schools, that the committees, the site committees get to meet again once or twice. I'm not sure where we are in the calendar. And then there were some assignments and looking and re-examining some of the other conversations we had, to include even the conversation about what preschool might look like if it were moved entirely over to CCP. So it's a larger conversation. So with that, maybe would you like to give us direction on a timeline, or would you like me to follow up with a recommendation to you?
Well, I think it's going to really depend on the architect's, you know, workload and how quickly they can get the information that we're looking for.
And the sites to meet again.
Yeah.
Yeah, to revisit the input, the plans, some phasing, modifications, potential reductions, deducts. Okay. Yes, we will. So David, we'll look at the schedule again with the team internally, and then we'll let you know. Thank you.
Can I have, I'm going to put on my Area 2 representative right now, and just, I think it would be helpful to the Summerlin Committee if this board together, and I would like to hear my colleagues, give the committee a sort of an overview, because we are looking at, is it $5.5 million versus the and I can't read. Yeah, that number right down there that I can't read. Because I know that, I think as Tim so eloquently stated, that site, I don't think it makes sense just to plop a Gen 7 down and call it a day. And you can't do anything with Summerlin if you don't do something with the slope, with the retaining wall, with the what we are calling the outdoor classroom. Even if you don't do anything with the outdoor classroom, you need to do something there, because it is a part of the campus and it is a part of the square footage per student that is required. So I think it would be very helpful for the Measure U committee at Summerlin to get some feedback from the board on what you think that we can work as, or to sort of further this along, because I would hate for this to let's hold this back.
Well, if you just look at the site improvement costs, you know, say that it's baked, if you know, like Tim said, and it's a true statement that a lot of the additional costs are baked into the site, and so if you took the budget and added, and I believe we added some you know, additional site work in there just because we knew it was a difficult site. But even if you just added the site work, you know, say 80% of that site work to the original number, you're still almost $2 million over your original budget. Even if you add those, add that factor in. So I think we're going to have to, the architects are going to have to drill down a little bit more on it. I mean, I know you've looked at it quite a bit, Joe, but you know, we also have to look at it from a per student basis. We have to give Summerlin, you know, some benefit of the doubt with the baked in costs, if that, using that term. But we also have to be cognizant of what we're spending per student on other sites. That's my opinion. I mean, because just to respond to the comment that Tim made in regard to the revenues generated in Summerlin, not all that money. I mean, that money is spread throughout the district. So those students go on to the middle school, go on to the high school. So it's not. Or Rincon and what's that?
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
And so it's cannot all be allocated to that site. Some of it can, but it has to be spread throughout the entire administration, the middle school and the high school.
I believe Tim is itching to say something.
Well, I don't think we need to have a back and forth. But I'm just saying that's and I'm not discounting what he said, Tim. we can't ignore that fact either. You know, I think it would be unfair to say that, you know, all that money, it should all go to Summerlin's site.
I don't think that's what Tim is saying,
Okay.
and I would never support that because I view myself very much a part of the CUSD family. So I would never support that.
Okay.
So that's not where we're coming from.
Just want to comment that, because I can't speak to the expertise of the construction part, because I'm trusting people, but just kind of philosophically, I think Tim made some really important points, and then there's a difference between equal and equitable, and obviously Summerland is a unique site.
It's a difficult site.
And we have to take into consideration a lot more than we do for, I don't know, flatter sites or
We
something.
do.
So I know we're going to definitely look at.
And if
seeing
you'd
what-
like to respond, Tim, you can. I
Yeah.
didn't mean to shut you
Yeah.
off.
No, I think it.
Come up to the microphone.
Thanks. I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to equitable.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any special treatment being asked. I think there's a lot of deferred maintenance that may not have been considered. There are some questions I have about how we got from 6 million to 2.5. The 2.5 number, from my perspective, is a little bit of a red herring. It seems like that was an arbitrary number, when most site plans that have occurred on that site have been between $5 and $6 million that I'm aware of. To come back and say it's 2.5, I don't know how you get that. I want a Tesla Roadster, but they're not going to give it to me for $20,000. You know, it's one of these things, and I understand we're not alone. Every school in here is faced with unique challenges.
Well, and
But-
I think like RingCon, you're looking for an identity, right? You want your school to be
Yeah, and
not just a bunch of portables thrown on the site, but something that is of pride and.
well, I think it's a sad state of affairs that we have to have these conversations, honestly. I think, you know, the value, schools are the backbone of any community. And the fact that we had this incredible work was done to get Measure U passed, and the fact that we're already having these discussions is a challenge. And I don't envy you. I really don't. And I know that it's going to be a hard process. But Summerlin's unique. It is a gem. It is a beautiful community and school, and I think that community does quite a bit for all of CUSD. And I think that this is the time to recognize that. So, thanks.
Great, thank you.
I think our architect has something to add.
I like your idea, Jacqueline. Give us some sort of. Even if you give us a percentage to try to hit, because otherwise it's above my pay scale to go back and say we can't do anything for 2.5. So we need to know, is there a bump to the 2.5?
Well, I think, I don't want to speak for everybody. I think you do have to factor, I believe we did factor in, extra site costs in our original study. I know we talked
You
about
had asked me during the presentation about what the plan was. There was no physical plan in the master plan.
it was just a plug number.
In the binder that I was given for the master plan, it was just numbers. There was no graphic of the plan, so I don't know. I think
So we were just doing
we said
per
it was like
square
one
foot.
for one.
So I like to revisit what Tim said, and I'm sorry, I'm not up on top of facilities. It's not my favorite thing, so I'm not up to it. But so there have been plans for Summerlin for this particular site before, so we kind of know what we were looking into. So the what is that number? $2.5 million. What can we realistically do with that 2.5 if that?
Right now, you can replace the existing portables with what you have now, and that's it.
So we
Look at
know
the
that that
estimate.
can't be done because of the site and the slope and ADA and all of that,
When
right?
we did the design 10 years or so ago with a conventionally built building that stepped up the hill, which kind of this is morphed into, it was like a $10 to $12 million project.
So you're saying you've cut it down?
So we're getting a deal.
No.
Okay. Superintendent Miglis said that Summerlin is getting a deal with a $5.5 million. On record.
We have two speakers on the topic, and I think it's our error because we're running ahead of schedule. And so I do want to recognize that we do have Anthony and John here, and they have requested to speak on
great.
Summerlin.
Okay.
So process, and I apologize for interrupting. I want to bring that to your attention.
I'm glad you brought that to our
Yes,
attention.
certainly, Jolene, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, Anthony, if you want to come on up.
Well, I was going to say, Justin
Justin.
Cochran, you gave your speaker slip first. You want to speak?
I'll make it brief. Tim, how to get on the points. I'm Justin Cochran. I've been in Summerlin for 15 years. I got two boys going to Summerlin School. Just want to say, if we, the school is more than just a school for this little community. It's like a spot for the whole city. And my friend has multiple sclerosis. He rides his bike from LA. He stops it everywhere. He stops there and he gets water. We cheer him on. When they come from breast cancer, they stop at Summerlin School. Everyone's that school is that playground being a blacktop, and our kids come on with black on their hands, and it's kind of a joke. And even my friends are like, "What are you? This is third world. It's less than third world country here." And I'm like, "Well, I think we're gonna get something coming." So I just want you. I hope you guys understand that it's more than just a school to our community. It's a lot, and we love that school. So,
thank you,
Anthony Posabon.
My name's Anthony Posmon. My family's been here since like the 1930s. My dad went here. I went here. I said I'd do whatever the school needed. I'd donate my time as a grading contractor. However, $50,000, $60,000, whatever. I mean, it's only a drop in the bucket, but whatever the school needs, I'll help out.
Yeah, one of the things that is driving the cost,
I know
based on the early geotechnical, is basically the complete dig out and bring in new dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I know.
Yeah,
and the caissons, and that's horrible cesspit. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think there's not too many caissons in there at this point. I think it's basically, isn't it mainly?
I haven't seen it.
Dig out and bring in new dirt, Joe?
That hasn't been designed, but I have a big number in there for soil remediation, and it assumes piles.
Oh, it does
I think
assume
I put
piles.
an extra $100 a square foot just for stuff we're going to run into that we don't know yet.
Okay, so it wasn't just a remove and replace.
No. It's a lot different cost than, let's say, Carpenter High School.
Yeah.
I'm worried about it, so I bumped it up.
Okay.
But whatever demo, whatever we can do, we'll help out.
Great. Thanks.
So once again, I'm going to continue to press this. Is there some clear directions that we can give the architect and Measure U committee regarding the 5.5 versus the 2.5?
Well, go ahead, Terry.
I could say my directions, but I don't think that
Right.
would be fair.
I'm going to tell you, first of all, I'm not quite ready to actually give clear direction. I still have quite a few questions, but I mean, we know we have to do something, and we know it's going to cost more because of the site itself. So there is going to be cost involved that obviously wasn't taken into account in the master facilities plan. So basic site work, that's going to have to be done. I'm going to maybe open a can of worms here, but I'm going to have to say that, I need some numbers on students at Summerlin, those that live in the trustee area and those that actually commute in, because I have to take that into account when I think about, numbers of classrooms that we're going to put there. We've gone from existing 4 to proposed 6. I don't blame anybody for that configuration. It's beautiful and for wanting that, but we have to be realistic about what we can afford and what the actual needs and potential future needs might be. So I just need to see some history on the numbers, and I don't mean just this year. I think I need to see for a number of years going back what's happening with our population there. So
I think I could tell you, as somebody who lives in Summerlin, is that what's happening with our population is that and I'm going to make a generalization. Some families in Summerlin's area of attendance can afford to go elsewhere. And when you have a school that's run down, and when you have the means to go elsewhere, you will go elsewhere. So we have a... My cheering section has come in. So that's, you can look at the attendance records, but it's not a reflection of the Summerlin community and of the children and the families in Summerlin that choose to go to a school where there are not nails in the wall, where there are flat grounds. So
I think the same can be said about our schools in Carpinteria, though we know that we lose some students to private schools. And some of that is perhaps for the reasons that you've stated. Some may be other reasons, and some are just, some people are always going to choose private school. So I don't want to argue with you over that, but I think it's something that we have to look at.
I think, I'm not ready to give you a number, but I think we know we're going to have to spend more than the $2.5 million.
And I also, just this opportunity that we have the Summerlin community here, the fact that I am still talking to parents for Summerlin in the meeting and convincing everybody that we're not closing Summerlin down.
Right. And
tells me that there is,
Well, I don't
No.
So
And I'm glad, can I?
Yeah, you may.
That was going to be my next comment, so I'm glad that you brought that up, because I, for one, recognize and honor the agreement that was made to operate a school in Summerlin at the unification of 3 districts, not 2. It was Summerlin, it was Carpinteria Elementary, and Carpinteria High School District that all unified at the same time. I have studied and know a lot of the history. I remember Summerlin growing up very well. So there is a lot of history, and it is very true that today the tax base has changed completely, but it was not always so. So there was a lot of years, many, many years, that it was reversed, that the tax base was not so high in Summerlin, and there was a reason that they unified, because their school had been condemned, and they could not afford to even tear it down, let alone put portables there. So I don't want to argue with anybody over, that history. It's just there, and it's real, and things have changed now, and Summerlin has become a very wealthy community in comparison, and they do contribute a lot to our tax base. I appreciate everyone in our district that contributes to our schools and to our community. So I do want to make it clear that I do recognize that, if not legal, at least in my opinion, moral agreement to operate a school in Summerlin. How it operates and what kind of school exactly it is, I agree that there's equity, but it doesn't mean it's all going to be equal. So that's the struggle that we have, how to make that work here as a board.
Thanks, Terry. Nice. Okay, anything else? All right. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. And we're ahead of schedule, so everybody gets to go home and go to bed, except us.
Go make more poppies.
Yeah. So, with that, we'll move on to our superintendent's report.
Yes, I'll make sure we stay later, don't worry. Okay, well, certainly thank everybody for their hours here, and our teachers and staff who need to get back to work in the morning. And so everyone, parents included, and our support team, our architects and our consultants, thank you all. This is really tremendous, and your labor of love and dedication continues to inspire me. Thank you all very much. Speaking of Summerlin, I'm looking forward to the Wizard of Oz and the poppies, and I'll try to get some red shoes for you there, Miss Jacqueline, to wear to the occasion on Saturday. I'm happy to attend the matinee on the 4th of June, and then that evening I've been invited to join the Executive Officer, CEO Michael Baker, for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Santa Barbara County for the Carpinteria Kids Auction. It sounds really exciting. Yet again, I keep getting really fortunate. I walk away with great gift certificates. I just need time to go and enjoy everything. So I'm looking forward to that. It's like I'm going to take a vacation and I'm going to go do all of this in one whole week. So I'm super excited about that. I encourage everybody to attend. These are terrific partners we have in the community. I was astounded by the students and the performance of Bye Bye Birdie. Can I just say I was thrilled to be there on opening night, and our Anna is here in the audience still, and I noticed our other youngsters who performed. Wow, you guys are amazing, amazing. And Azalea and her dancing and her star-like personality. I was thrilled to meet her dad and also her best friend that sat right near me too. So thank you all to the students, Muse's class, and our teacher, Miss Elise, did a fantastic job. And I know she's the one who's going to say, it's all the kids, I didn't do anything, but let's face it, she put in a ton of hours as well, and I'm so deeply impressed with everything. I'd like to thank our high schoolers today, Carson and Jaime and Wesley, the students of our class at the high school, in particular Elder, who taught me how to drive a forklift today. So that was a thrill. First time I ever did that. Imagine that. A girl of Greek immigrants from the old country, formerly of New York, who came to California in 1976, learned how to drive a forklift today. So, yeah, I know, super exciting, and what an incredible memory I'll always have. Thank you all.
Summer work.
And I'll get some summer work, exactly. Okay, no comments over there. I see what you're doing. Okay, yeah, for my summer job, good. Are you trying to tell me something, boss? Okay, uh-oh. Thank you also to the English Language Arts, Reading, Literacy, and ELD teachers of the middle school who invited me to a professional conversation with them to talk about our materials and our curriculum for next year. That was really terrific to get to participate with them. We had a great meeting with the staff and families of the family school, and as a result, I'm looking forward to receiving from them. Of course, I gave them homework, as you know I would, a list of characteristics and qualities that they would seek in their next leader. And then also the opportunity, I invited them to review, revisit, revise, recommit, repurpose their principles and their identity as a school as well. And so like Tim this evening with Summerlin, just an opportunity to look at within and identify our risks and opportunities as a school, and then also to help dispel any myths that are in the community, a little bit like what Tim modeled for us here this evening. So thank you for the invitation to meet with you as well. We had our inaugural board meeting with CCP as the newly formed 501c3, and it was a lovely reception after school, after work hours, just to get together and then to meet the fellow and proposed board members. So we're looking forward to that new opportunity for the Carpinteria Children's Project as well, and a new name that they will be releasing here as they develop into their newly formed 501c3. The superintendent's last parent advisory committee meeting is this Thursday, and I'd like to thank Girls Inc. For allowing us to meet on their campus or their property, and we're having lunch, and we're going to reflect back on the year, identify successes, also think about what we might be focusing on, getting our parents to give me advice and advisory capacity about the new school year. And we'll also, I'll be joined by Barnaby Gloger and also Jay Hotchner, the co-chairs for the safety committee. We'll be talking about visitors procedures, and this is our opportunity to first ask our parents at the parent advisory committee level, what might that look like, and some things we ought to be thinking about as we continue through our safety measures into the new school year. And did mention The Wizard of Oz coming up as well, correct? Yes, the matinee. I'm sorry, there's so many things to think about at this time of year, and our up-and-coming promotions and graduations. I'm especially excited because I get to give and join you in giving the first diplomas of my career in the Carpinteria Unified School District to our seniors this year graduating from the high school. So, and thanks to all of you for your ongoing support. Thank you.
Great.
Good.
Thank you.
You want me to keep talking too? I'm like,
no, you're-
Mr. Diamond and I, we get paid to talk all day long. I like that. It's very cool. I'm in good company.
You are. Excuse me. So now we'll move on to Cindy's report and May revise.
Okay. So last Friday, I attended the May Revise workshop that's put on by School Services of California and got a lot of really good information. And of course, that's the last point of which we have any data that we can use for developing our budget for adoption in June. The May Revise came out. The legislatures, both the Assembly and the Senate, will have to pass a budget by June 15th or they get their pay docked. So I expect that we'll have an on-time budget. For us, there's really only a couple of things that impact us directly. One is the one-time funding, which has been increased slightly. So it went from $214 per ADA to $237 per ADA. So that gives us a total of about $509,000 for next year. And of course, it's one time. And this is going to be the third year, I think, of one-time money. But I think this really is the last time because the state revenues are slowing. The state has repaid most of the maintenance factor for schools where they were cut during the recession. So instead of getting these huge increases in funds every year, I think schools will see increases that are more in line with a cost of living. The COLA, which, by the way, this year is officially zero. So the few types of funds we get, like special education and our school nutrition funds, will not be increased because there is no official COLA for next year. So that's not such good news, but I am happy to have the one-time funds for our budget. The other big topic for discussion is the early childhood education block grant. And the governor proposed combining funds from the state preschool and TK in January. And he made some other proposals related to it in the May Revise, and the legislature has rejected both of them. So I don't know what's going on. I tried to find out today because Maria was getting some emails, and so I tried to find out if there was anything at all I could tell you about what the process looks like, and nothing's come out. So we're waiting to see if anything's happening with that block grant. But I suspect that it may be deferred for a year. Or not. We don't know. So we're just going to build our budget with the same old state preschool grant funding. And of course, with TK, we don't get funded anything extra for our students because we're basic aid anyway. So we're going to work under those assumptions for now. And maybe there'll be something different when the state budget is actually passed. The only other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that there's discussion about Proposition 30, the extension of that on the ballot in November. The state revenues will drop precipitously in a couple of years when that fully expires, so extension of that is really important. It's especially important to us because as a basic aid district, we're guaranteed $200 per ADA, and in 2018-19, we would no longer be receiving that funding, which is over $400,000. So hopefully that proposition will be approved by voters and it will be extended. The other thing is the statewide facilities bond, which is $9 billion. actually, both of the bonds have strong public support. It's over 60% in formal polls. The other interesting thing, though, is that with this statewide facility bond, there's already a backlog of about $1 billion in projects which have been approved, but they're unfunded. So we need to get going and get our projects approved by the state architects and then apply for the funding through the OPSC, the Office of Public School Construction. So we can get in that line of unfunded projects before the whole $9 billion is used up. So I feel a certain amount of urgency about that as well, because everybody's getting in line. And I think that's it for the May revise.
I had one question.
Sure.
So the one-time funding increase from 214 to 237 ADA.
Yes.
So that isn't 509,000 additional.
No,
dollars.
and I'm
It's
sorry, I wasn't clear.
60,000
The
additional.
total, it's about 46,000.
Yes.
So the total amount is 509. Yeah, I wish that were the increase,
Yeah.
but it's not. I think what is also important is this year we are receiving $1.1 million in one-time monies, and it's going to drop to 509 next year. So that's already reflected for the most part in our multi-year projections, other than the fact that there's an additional 46,000.
Great. Thanks. I think we've covered Measure D.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything further to say about that.
All right. Public comment? All right.
We have public comment, and the first speaker is Daniel Diamond, who has time ceded to him by Casey Roberts.
So I'm going to keep this brief. The main thing I would just wanted to speak about is this impasse thing. I know you're all aware of it. It is a distraction. It's a distraction to our children that are going through the system. So I just would like to urge the board to continue to work with the union and to try to make some progress so we can get back to doing what we want to do, which is teach. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
The next speaker is Anna Delgado.
Good evening. I'm sure most of you know me, but for those here that do not, I would like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Anna Delgado, and I am currently a junior attending Carpinteria High School. I've had the opportunity to serve as student representative along with Jamie Denault, but tonight I'll be assuming the position of a student advocate. And I know I'm the only high school student here tonight, but if I learned anything in my 12 years of education, is that one voice can make a difference. I'm here tonight to stand by my teachers, to promote change, and positively contribute to their cause of fair treatment and wages. Having held presidential positions in CHS's Associate Student Body and our Junior State of America chapter has shown me the true value of our teachers. We have individuals here who have spent their evenings chaperoning dances. We have individuals here who have spent weekends away from their families to TA countless academic conferences and conventions. But most importantly, we have individuals here who have shown tireless dedication to ensure a student's academic success. But as of lately, the lack of investment in our teachers on behalf of this school board has hit the ultimate breaking point, and now we, students and teachers, are faced with the impasse. Teachers have put students as their number one priority, and it appears the school board hasn't done the same with their teachers. And it is utterly saddening and disappointing to hear how our teachers are not being given a raise in salary, even though there is a 10% reserve sitting there, untouched. And I think we all need to take a step back and realize the potential impact the impasse will have on the student body. The students know about the impasse, and they're not very happy about it. I've talked with them, and we've all come up with these two basic principles, but there's plenty more to speak about. The immediate threat will be to our academic clubs. CHS's leadership class success relies heavily on teacher volunteerism. Without teacher engagement, annual events such as MORP, homecoming, and prom are simply impossible. CHS's Junior State of America focuses on engaging youth in local, national, and global issues and highlights the importance of civic engagement. But without our teacher, students will be withheld from being able to attend our state conventions. And these are, again, just 2 of the clubs CHS holds, and it would be a shame to see any clubs disappear next year. The next threat lies among receiving letters of recommendation. These letters show our development in academics and our physical representations of the bond we students have developed with our teachers. And these are crucial to our college application and are crucial to our college acceptance. I know our teachers do not want to go forth with the impasse, but they have felt as though they have no other option. In the past 3 years of high school, I've learned that to bring about any type of change starts with voicing one's opinions, and fighting apathy is crucial. I hope this issue is resolved, and I ask that you hear and listen to our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna, is Jacques still here?
No, they all had to go to jazz band.
Okay, thank you. All right. The next speaker is Jay Hotchner with time ceded by Felicity Moore.
Thank you.
Is Felicity still here?
No. How does that change things? Please let me know and I will be responsive.
Yeah, good. Just go ahead. I just was curious.
No, because you have cut me off in the past due to time, so if there's a time limit, I'd like to know what it is.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm here in regard specifically to the concept of volunteerism. And I will state that the union is concerned that the CUSD school board is not only aware that its bargaining position drives a wedge between district employees and Carpinteria's families, but perhaps is even doing so while promoting misinformation. 2 weeks ago, a Miss Krause of Ontario, California, wrote a letter mischaracterizing the teachers union and district faculty. Coincidentally, Miss Krause, I believe, happens to be the daughter of one of our board members, Miss Banks. And intentionally or not, that is correct, yes, thank you.
Yes, it's true.
And intentionally or not, she left much out of her letter titled, "Don't Bargain with Students." It was a response to comments made a week earlier by myself in regard to volunteerism. She cited a statement that had been abbreviated into the paper. The statement read, Hotchner said that teachers are likely to stop putting in the volunteer hours they typically dedicate to activities like extracurricular clubs, after-hour phone calls with parents, and letters of reference. Ms. Krause then assumed that the union is using students as, quote, a bargaining chip. That was her assumption, and a gross one. My quote regarding volunteerism, which is service well above and beyond any contractual expectations, was made in the context of the distractions district employees will face due to the school board's impasse position. The statement was not a threat. It was a candid observation. And for CUSD teachers and support staff, and we believe for parents and students, it was also an ugly reality resulting from the board's sustained failure to plan for adequate cost of living adjustments for its employees. The union is unsure where Ms. Krause collected such lopsided data. Several important details appeared to be strategically absent from her letter, and I'd like to mention a few of those. For those living in Carpinteria, the cost of living is 57% higher than the average statewide. The average home cost is 175% more than the nationwide average. And the cost of living is 16% higher than the California average, which is already much higher than most of the country. But CUSD employees must also manage these details along with those that others in our neighbors in Carpinteria must manage. Over the last 15 years, the school board has failed to keep up with the increasing cost of living. As a result, district salaries are in the lowest quartile regionally. With the board's current proposal, a 1% salary increase, employees will fall even further behind the cost of living. While district reserves, savings, monies withheld and unapplied to operating expenses, are increased by 300%, employees experience an overall decrease in the value of their earnings. Throughout this building crisis, district staff provided high levels of volunteerism. 15 years, 20 years, we have made a reputation for ourselves in this community with our volunteerism. All the while, the school board has continued to push employees closer and closer to the fiscal fringes of our community. After 15 years of hyper-conservative fiscal policies, district employees have reached a tipping point. Thus our declaration of impasse, built upon your bargaining position. The school board's bargaining position destabilizes employees who serve Carpinteria's children and families. It ensures that the challenges faced by district employees will only become more acute in years out. And it compounds the fiscal hardships for many employee families, hardships such as paying mortgages or rent, assessing quality childcare and accessing quality childcare, covering medical expenses, meeting increased tax obligations, and other bread and butter issues. We're not talking about buying Ferraris here. I won't blame Ms. Krause for being misinformed, but she certainly shares the blame for misinforming. It is time that this school board work to bring the stakeholders of this district together in a respectful manner versus driving wedges between employees and the very children and families we serve. Please stop. Thank you.
I want to respond, please. So it is true that that letter was written by my daughter, and I had absolutely no doubt that many of you in the district would know that that was written by Ashley Banks Krause, because many of you know that she is a teacher and where she lives, because we talk about it. And I also know, Mr. Hotchner, that you are close friends with my niece, her cousin, and I figured that there would be discussion. My daughter was up here, I think it was 2 weeks ago, for a memorial service for my brother-in-law who'd passed away. And one of the things she does when she comes up every time, she grabs the Coastal View and she reads it. And she read that letter, and she immediately sat down and wrote her response. I didn't ask her to. I actually thought about asking her not to send it. I did not coach her. Those are 100% her thoughts and her words, and I personally am very proud of her for what she said and how she feels as a teacher. So I don't believe it's misinformation. You can say that there are differing opinions on the subject, but that is 100% her opinion, and I'll stand by her. But I'm just going to say for the record, whether you believe it or not, I did not coach her for that letter. That was her thoughts and her passion.
Thanks, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Jolene, any further comment?
There's one more speaker slip, and it's John Steinman.
After all that, this is going to sound positively trivial.
Good.
Give you a little time. Well, actually, because of the starting the new math curriculum, I wanted to remind everybody that the Dreambox has been remarkably effective in helping young children learn math. For example, my first grader has progressed to third grade work and can add and subtract two-digit numbers mentally, and has mostly memorized her multiplication table. This is while she's still in first grade. The lower grade teachers, this allows more lower grade teachers to spend more time on other subjects such as language arts or social and emotional development and other nice things we like to see the young kids learn. And so I would hope to see Dreambox retained in addition to the new math curriculum. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're the first one to speak out in favor of Dreambox, John. That's great. I'm glad. I'm glad to hear it. Okay. We'll move on to item G, curriculum instruction, and the second reading of the adoption for new mathematics textbooks, kindergarten through 5th grade. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the second reading of the Bridges in Mathematics program as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and item 2 is the adoption of the new mathematics textbooks for. I was corrected last week on that.
I
There's a
know.
new word.
Who said
Not
that?
math and it's
Mathematics.
and math. Yeah, I think it was. So adoption of new mathematics textbooks for grades 6 through 12, second reading.
I move that we adopt the mathematics textbooks for grade 6 to grade 12.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on to H, business operations, facilities, and warrants.
I move we approve and ratify the warrants from May 5th through May 12th, 2016 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, gifts and donations. The board is being asked to accept the following. Item 1 is a grant in the amount of $30,000. It's a final distribution from the Santa Barbara Foundation to Science Matters. Item 2 is a grant in the amount of $1,750 from the Discover Brighter Futures Fund, Goldman Sachs Philanthropy Fund, to this Carpenter High School to be used for financial education curriculum. And item 3 is a grant in the amount of $14,000 from the Santa Barbara Foundation to the Carpenter Children's Project as a recipient of the 2016 Early Care and Education Grants Program.
I'll move that we approve the gifts with gratitude.
Second.
Thank you to all. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item I, Measure U, and there's a slight change from our agenda, but it's just language. So it's the approval of a service agreement with FCG Environmental, not the JMP Electrical. So it's service agreement with FCG Environmental for environmental testing and consulting services for the high school roofing project C&G Wings. And the amount is $80,000 to be paid for $1,275 to be paid for with Measure U.
I move we approve as amended.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then we'll move on to item J, personnel, and second reading of the salary schedule for Director of Ed Services. Any motion?
I'll move that we approve the second reading of the salary schedule for the Director of Educational Services.
Not the second reading. Oh, sorry, it is. Yeah. Didn't see that. Second.
Oh, okay. All in favor? Or any
Could I?
discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate the revisions.
That was our concern. We just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Board communication. Lisa?
Tonight.
None?
Yay. Sorry. Ooh. Super excited. We have 15 applicants.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
No? You want to pipe off some more?
No, I'm done.
Harry?
You see what I have to deal with here?
I don't have anything right now.
Okay.
No, it's been a long night.
Yeah. All right. Okay, well, we're going to adjourn to our closed session and.
Board members.
Yes.
Do we have the opportunity to talk about who's going to which? Or do you want to email me which promotion and ceremony, graduation ceremony?
I'll be at, I will be at Aliso Canalino Middle School, High School on the, was that the 10th?
Is there one that you're not?
And then I'm going to try to come to the family school in Summerlin, but I'm not 100% on.
Can Jolene follow up with all of
Yeah,
you
she
then?
can.
Perfect.
Can I just ask, and I don't want preferential treatment, but I remember last year running from the 3 elementary school, and parking was a huge problem when I came in late. Is there any way that we can get some sort of parking, just so that we are not
The easy way to do that is we all meet at the district office.
Okay.
And then we drive in one vehicle.
Yes,
And then,
that's a good
and then
idea.
we come back and have a spot.
That would solve it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Jolene will send an email and then
We
you
park
can
in
just
the bus.
confirm your attendance, so.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone, for sticking around and all the input.